Chapter 985. Every team must bring back 5 preys before sunset today. This will be considered as an important part of the autumn tree hunt this time. As for those who don't bring back 5 preys or didn't hunt any preys, 1 point will be deducted from them. And this time, the total number of students participating in the autumn hunt from each academy will be evaluated and ranked after the hunt is over. As for the academy with the lowest ranking, it will be directly eliminated. You all know what will happen 3 years later, so I won't say anything more. As for the remaining 3 academies, they will conduct the final round of Dao discussion among the students, and the most outstanding academies of this year will be determined. Similarly, the mid-autumn hunt will be judged based on points. The previous 3 days of academic exchange can also be used to familiarize each other. After 3 days of practice, the old man believes that all of you should be familiar with each other. Then the old man announces the official start of the hunt. The most important part of the mid-autumn hunt had finally arrived. The number of participants for the mid-autumn hunt this time was originally planned to be 30 from each academy. Zhang Feng had originally brought 30 people from each academy. However, these damn fellows actually said that Zhang Feng's academy was just established this year and didn't have enough people. Therefore, each academy could only have 15 people. This meant that the total number of people from Chang and University and White Deer College only added up to one academy's quota. This was also why Zhang Feng was more angry. After the people from the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Appointments found out that these 2 academies were under Zhang Feng's name, they actually firmly believed that these 2 academies belonged to the same system. After all, the Chancellor and Dean of the academies were the same person. Zhang Feng didn't have any more anger. What else could he do? He could only pinch his nose and admit defeat. He originally thought that he could take advantage of this situation. However, from the looks of it now, it wasn't just taking advantage. Damn it, these bastards were definitely targeting him. Although he still occupied 2 spots of the academies at this time, which seemed to be a great bargain in the eyes of outsiders, but discerning people could see at a glance that other academies had 30 people in them. But what about his academy? Their purpose for doing so was evident at this moment, which was to prepare for the hunt. Hunting was also a test of a student's ability to survive and hunt in real life. It was a test of coordination between the hands, eyes, and brain. Furthermore, there were people from other academies monitoring them, so it would be difficult for them to cheat. The success or failure of the mid-autumn hunt was mainly determined by points. At this moment, White Deer College and Chang and University were at a disadvantage in terms of numbers. There was a huge gap in points between them and their opponents. If they wanted to win, they could only rely on their own abilities. Zhang Feng did not doubt the abilities of these guys. Although they were stubborn, it was not easy to enter the circle of stubborn people in Chang'an City. These people were all second-generation heirs who had been abandoned by their families. They were proficient in eating, drinking, whoring, gambling, riding, and archery. This was also the reason why Zhang Feng had chosen them to come. As for White Deer College, although there were only 5 people including Tainyo, there was still Hao Chujun, Ma Zhou, Lai Ji, and the others. To put it nicely, they were just going through the motions. In terms of knowledge, they were just going through the motions. As for relying on them to hunt and snatch the championship from these people, Zhang Feng could only think about it. Which one of those who could afford to study didn't come from a well-off family? What about Ma Zhou, Lai Ji, and the others? To put it bluntly, they were all from bumpkins. The fact that they didn't kneel when they saw them was already due to Zhang Feng's good education. In ancient times, people were very particular about hierarchy. However, their purpose for coming here was to build up their self-confidence. Most importantly, they were here to maintain their reputation. After all, if the entire college was filled with a bunch of uncouth people, Zhang Feng would not be able to maintain his reputation. What would others think of him? After all, Chang and University was made up of stubborn students. When it came to keeping up appearances, Zhang Feng really didn't count on these people. Zhang Feng did not want to lose at this crucial moment. If he lost this competition, Zhang Feng would really lose everything. At this moment, the people from the Imperial College and the Hongwen School saw that Zhang Feng's expression was a little bad and could not help but secretly rejoice. They seemed to think that Zhang Feng must be feeling distressed because of this. Zhang Feng glanced at the 2 of them and did not say anything. At the command of Lord He from the Ministry of Works, a group of officials from the Ministry of Works carried a big box and appeared in front of the students of the 4 colleges. Inside the box was a dagger. The official from the Ministry of Appointments looked around with a solemn expression and said, "This hunt does not allow any injuries, deaths, or disappearances, especially those caused by people. If I find out that anyone dares to use brute force or violence, I have the right to expel them immediately and hand them over to the authorities for investigation. In the next 10 years, they are not allowed to appear in any college of the Tang Dynasty. Otherwise they will bear the consequences. Chapter 986. After a series of warnings, Lord Chen of the Ministry of Appointments waved his hand impatiently and signaled the students to set off. Zhang Feng was too lazy to care about these things. Chen Tinyu and the others were enough. With the influence and prestige of the 4 great demon kings, who dared to mess around, they could scare these people to death. Was there a need to do anything? Since there was nothing to do, Zhang Feng took Zhang Yuyao and Jing Shu to stroll around Erpi Ridge. These 3 days he was bored to death. Humans were also strange creatures. When they were busy they wanted to be free, but once they were free they would feel anxious. Although these 3 days were spent listening to Jing Shu's songs all day and the days were very comfortable, Zhang Feng was always a little unhappy. Moreover, Zhang Feng had long wanted to go to Erpi Ditch to see what was going on with the coal mine and whether there was any progress. However, it did not seem to be the right time now. He simply took the 2 girls down the hill along the stream. While enjoying the beautiful scenery, he recited poems and couplets, which made the 2 girls laugh from time to time. Fengzi, here, come quickly, I'm old Nyo. Just as Zhang Feng took out a silk thread from his silk clothes and was about to weave a set of fishing gear, listen to music, and fish to live the life of an immortal, Nyo Jinda sneaked out from the bushes not far ahead, and on his head was a straw hat made of leaves. At this time he stuck his head out and greeted Zhang Feng. If Zhang Feng did not look carefully, he would not have recognized that this was Nyo Jinda. Nyo Jinda's appearance was so ugly that it could make children cry at night. At this time Jing Shu and the other girl were so scared that their faces turned pale and their beautiful faces turned pale. After Zhang Feng confirmed that this person was Nyo Jinda, he kept the Mitsubishi army knife in his arms and comforted the 2 girls. He stared at Nyo Jinda and said, "Old Nyo, it's broad daylight. Can you not scare people by pretending to be a ghost?" Zhang Feng's face darkened. He finally managed to get Zhang Yuyao to stop crying. He glared at Nyo Jinda and said, "I've been here for 3 days. Why haven't I heard from you? Are you here to scare me? You're asking for a beating." Nyo Jinda chuckled and emerged from the grass. He looked around and patted the dirt off his body. "I wanted to come out earlier, but isn't this to avoid arousing suspicion? If someone else finds out about this, it will be difficult for you to deal with this matter. Furthermore, the noses of the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Personnel are all dogs. If they catch wind of this matter, do you think we will have anything left to drink?" Hearing this, Zhang Feng nodded. Nyo Jinda was right. If these 2 bastards knew about the existence of the coal mine, they would not be able to get anything. Zhang Feng could not help but ask anxiously, "Did you find that thing?" "I found it. Let's find a quieter place and eat while we talk." Zhang Feng's head was full of question marks. "What the f***ck are you talking about while eating? So, you've already prepared this beforehand, haven't you?" With doubts, Zhang Feng held the 2 girls and followed Nyo Jinda through the forest. After a while they entered an open area. In the open area there were 3 people who looked like servants. They were roasting a whole lamb over a charcoal fire. The whole lamb had been roasted like a pig. It was golden yellow and was still sizzling with oil. Zhang Feng's eyes widened at the sight. That's it? This was a beach protruding from the river. A thatched hut had been built in a hidden place in the beach. Zhang Feng could vaguely see some bedding and other things inside. It seemed that this was a sentry post of old Nyo's men. Outside the sentry post, Zhang Feng could vaguely see 7 or 8 people holding sharp mo swords. They were on the trees or lying on the ground, staring at the surroundings like dead dogs. Nyo Jinda pointed here as if showing off and said, "How is it? Ordinary people can't find this place, right? Come. I know you've suffered in the past 3 days. This is a wild goat caught in Erpi Ridge today. It's fat." As he spoke, Nyo Jinda led the 3 of them to the roasted whole lamb that was being roasted. At this moment, the smell of the lamb mixed with cumin and pepper made Zhang Feng salivate. The premise was that old Nyo had to take a bath first. Before they even entered, someone had already prepared a hastily made bamboo stool and a bamboo table by the side. After settling the 2 girls down, Zhang Feng looked at the roasted whole lamb. On the side of the roasted whole lamb, there were 3 roasted fishes that were being casually flipped. Zhang Feng was speechless. Zhang Feng was about to vomit after eating so much lamb. However, when he saw the fishes, his eyes started to shine. He pulled the 2 girls and went forward without saying anything. He searched for wild onions and fresh ginger by the river. After a while, Zhang Feng picked up a broken pottery jar that was still intact from the river and poured some chopped onions into it. He poured some ginger juice into a bowl and drizzled it on the roasted fish. In an instant, the smell of the roasted fish exploded. After that, Zhang Feng rummaged in his arms for a while and took out bottles and jars. He smeared them on the fish for a while. Then he chased away the 3 people who were roasting the whole lamb inside. This lamb is a proper lamb. However, after being messed with by you guys, it's completely ruined. Our lives are tough. For the sake of my stomach, let me do it. Niu Jinda had been looking forward to it for a long time. He was waiting for Zhang Feng to say that. When Zhang Feng said that, Niu Jinda grinned and handed the dagger in his hand to Zhang Feng. Here's the dagger. You do it. Chapter 987. Zhang Feng didn't bother to pay attention to Niu Jinda. After all, this rare picnic made Zhang Feng miss his college life. Niu Jinda looked at the mutton while thinking. Niu Jinda's eyes were fixed. He kicked all the guards out to look for the wild onions and wild ginger that Zhang Feng had just found. Someone even sneaked into the mid-autumn hunt camp and stole a big pot. He twisted all these things into ginger juice and handed it to Zhang Feng. When half a pot of ginger juice was poured down, there was a burst of sizzling sound on the charcoal fire. The rank odor of the roasted whole lamb was covered by the thick ginger juice. In an instant, the tempting fragrance of the mutton overflowed again. Niu Jinda swallowed his saliva. Zhang Feng could only roll his eyes. In the end, even Zhang Yuyao and Jing Shu stared at the golden roasted fish and roasted whole lamb and drooled. Zhang Feng had no choice but to put down the whole roasted lamb in his hand. He twisted a handful of onions and put them on the roasted fish. He roasted them on the fire and handed them to the 3 of them. However, there were only 3 fish. At this time, Niu Jinda looked at the roasted fish in the hands of Jing Shu, Zhang Yuyao and Zhang Feng with a stuttering face. Zhang Yuyao was shy and handed the roasted fish in her hand to Niu Jinda with a red face. This Niu Jinda was simply transformed from an animal. After catching the fish, under the dumbfounded gazes of Zhang Feng and the others, he swallowed the fish in big mouthfuls. Zhang Feng was horrified to find that this guy didn't even chew. He just swallowed it directly. Seeing this, Zhang Feng felt a toothache. He was afraid that this old guy would be choked by the fish bones and couldn't breathe. But fortunately, Zhang Feng really underestimated Niu Jinda's appetite. After swallowing the roasted fish that was more than a caddy in his hand, Niu Jinda looked at the bottles and jars that Zhang Feng put on the ground. While Zhang Feng was eating the roasted fish, he poured the rest of the condiments onto the mutton, imitating Zhang Feng's actions. However, after doing so, Zhang Feng's bottles and jars were completely empty. A spicy smell and a strong smell of cumin filled the air, causing Zhang Feng to seriously doubt whether the whole roasted mutton that had turned from golden to black was poisonous or not. However, when Zhang Feng saw that Niu Jinda was actually sucking his fingers, and then secretly cutting his flesh with a blade to eat, Zhang Feng was so disgusted that he almost threw up last night's meal. Looking at the ground, what frightened Zhang Feng the most was that there was at least a caddy of salt in the gourd-shaped bottle that was as big as a fist, but this guy actually poured all of it. This old guy actually poured all of it on the roasted whole lamb. Wouldn't that kill people? After Zhang Feng and the other 2 pointed to their stomachs and said that they couldn't eat any more, Niu Jinda happily held the roasted whole lamb and tore off a hind leg, chewing it in big mouthfuls. Seeing this, Zhang Yuyao's face turned pale. It wasn't until he finished eating the leg that Niu Jinda wiped his greasy mouth and said, "Boy, we really got lucky this time." Even though Zhang Feng was prepared, when he heard Niu Jinda's words at this time, he was really confused and asked, "What? What? You ask me what?" The Erpi ditch you mentioned is simply a great gift from the heavens to the Tang Dynasty. When we first came here we really didn't know where to find this thing, but fortunately there was a burst of autumn rain before. After a long drought and a good rain, there was actually a landslide in this mountain. Guess what? As her body slid down, a black mass was instantly revealed. "That's coal," Niu Jinda said with exultation, and the beard on his mouth was dancing. "In the end, I sent someone to investigate the situation and guess what? Good heavens, the whole mountain was filled with King coal. Brother, if we didn't get lucky, what is this?" Zhang Feng was also a little shocked, although he faintly felt that there was indeed coal reserves in Lantian. Moreover, it had already been mined since the Song Dynasty. There was no way to trace back the specific time of mining. However, from the conversation between the few of them he could be sure of one thing, and that was, in the beginning of the Tang Dynasty, this era had not yet discovered a place to live, so it was really unclear whether there was coal in this mountain or not. However, Zhang Feng knew that this Lantian coal field was a super big coal mine that was said to not be emptied within 100 years. One had to know that this had been mined for more than 1,000 years before. Even so, it was not emptied. Could be imagined that this time they really hit the jackpot. However, at this time this had nothing to do with Zhang Feng. He hurriedly asked, "Tell me, why has there been no news during this time and no news has been sent back to me? Did you encounter the Taiyuan Wang clan again and get into trouble?" When Niu Jinda heard this, the smile on his face disappeared. Even the lamb leg in his hand was no longer fragrant. He smacked his lips and nodded. "You're right, this time we are indeed being watched, but those people still don't know about this. This time, they seem to have brought some people from the direction of Taiyuan to prepare to come over. It seems that they also heard the rumors and want to thoroughly explore this place. But fortunately, I, old Niu, am smart. After discovering that there is coal here, I directly went to the Lantian County Magistrate and bought all of this second batch of coal. Therefore, at this time, there is some entanglement between us and them. After all, there is something that we don't dare to spread. Otherwise, with Lao Tzu's character, he would have already pressed him to the ground and beaten him up. However, the more we obstruct them, the more they seem to be really angry and they want to go in no matter what. Therefore, during this time, in order to not blow this matter up, I didn't dare to dig up the news and spread it out. Just 3 days ago, I heard that you guys came, so I took the time to prepare to spread the news. However, there is a problem here, and that is, the people from the Ministry of Works, Ministry of Appointments, and Ministry of Rights don't seem to be honest. I have a premonition that one of these three must be related to the Wang clan. Otherwise, why would the people from the Taiyuan Wang clan come here during the mid-autumn hunt? Moreover, they want to bring more than 500 people in to explore? Therefore, I feel that there is something fishy about this. Chapter 988. Hearing this, Zhang Feng's face turned gloomy. Judging from the recent series of events, Zhang Feng really didn't think that this matter was related to the 5 families and 7 factions. After all, Zhang Feng didn't want to offend these people at this time. However, if the Taiyuan Wang clan was involved, then the matter would become complicated and confusing. If you said that the Guanlong group was targeting Zhang Feng, then Zhang Feng could still explain it. However, this Taiyuan Wang clan, damn it. Lao Tzu didn't even provoke you. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to muddy the waters? But how are you going to muddy the waters? What benefits are there? After all, no one knew about the things in the mountains. It was just a rumor. If Lao Tzu hadn't transmigrated, Lao Tzu wouldn't have known that there was such a thing in this poor village. It seemed that these people were really here for the mid-autumn hunt. In the end, Zhang Feng could only link the final outcome of this matter to the mid-autumn hunt. If Zhang Feng failed in the mid-autumn hunt, then they had 100 reasons to kill Zhang Feng here. In order to be safe, they had to make preparations in advance. On one hand, they had to try their best to delay Zhang Feng's victory. On the other hand, they had to make use of their convenience in the palace to reduce the number of people that Zhang Feng could bring to the lowest level. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng couldn't help but smile coldly. Do you think that you are the only ones who are prepared? Do you believe that Lao Tzu and the others will give you a big gift? When he had asked Old Cow to come over, Zhang Feng had a faint premonition. That was because the mid-autumn hunt was basically held in Nantian County every year. Although the location was different, the general location was within Lantian County. Furthermore, after knowing that there was a coal mine in Lantian County and that there were people from the Wang clan operating there, Zhang Feng combined the Imperial College, Ministry of Works, Ministry of Rights and Ministry of Works to trip him up from time to time. Zhang Feng couldn't help but think of something else. Sure enough, Old Ox's words allowed Zhang Feng to connect the dots. Zhang Feng quickly asked, "Old Ox, how many people did you bring this time?" Old Ox's words made Zhang Feng think of something else. Niu Jinda shook his head and said, "Not many, probably less than 200 people. But you can rest assured that these 200 people are all experts." This time, Zhang Feng couldn't help but feel relieved. However, a murderous intent flashed across his eyes. He hooked his finger and whispered into Niu Jinda's ear, "If you can get some people out, you can immediately bring this matter back to the Academy's smelting workshop. They should be able to rush out a few hundred Mitsubishi military knives within 3 days. Get your people to bring these things over and be prepared to fight with these people at any time." Now that she heard this, she was shocked. "Fengzi, are you going to completely fall out with those aristocratic families at this time?" Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. "I'm not stupid. Why would I provoke them at this time? But I heard from Niu Weili, who is also the Chang and County Magistrate, that he was the County Magistrate of Lantian County for a few years. He said that there are many groups of bandits in Lantian County. As Lantian County hadn't been affected before, he didn't send troops to seize them. But you said that if during the mid-autumn hunt or when these people want to take action." Before Zhang Feng finished speaking, Niu Jinda's eyes instantly lit up. "Good plan. This is simply a good plan. I understand, I'll do it now. As for the other things, I don't know, so I'll leave them to you. As long as you say something, I've already sent my right-hand man to ambush you. As for the rest of the things, not to mention more than 500 people, even if they send 10,000 people, Old Nyo will not take them seriously. Zhang Feng smiled and shook his head. But he didn't say anything. And these people, Zhang Feng was just preparing a backup plan. After all, this coal mine was related to Chang'an. This time, if the coal mine was exposed, these people in Old Nyo's hands would be the most powerful backing to guard this coal mine. As for these people wanting to take action, Zhang Feng really wanted to see what these people wanted to do. This is one of the things. There's one more thing. Help me pass a message to Mr. Bosher. Tell him to prepare for the mid-autumn hunt invitation. Tell them to speed up their training. At most 10 days, at least 5 days, we will definitely return to the academy. Although Nyo Jinda didn't know what the Mitsubishi bayonet and what he meant by preparation, he still followed Zhang Feng's instructions. He waved to a person beside him and then nodded. In an instant, that person slowly dived into the river and quietly disappeared in front of everyone, leaving no trace. At this time, Nyo Jinda asked, "Fengzi, let me ask you something. You have to tell me honestly. What's the relationship between us? If you have something to say, just say it." Zhang Feng gritted his teeth with a thin bamboo stick while looking at Nyo Jinda. But at this time, Nyo Jinda was looking at Jing Shu and Zhang Yuyao. His meaning couldn't be more obvious. Zhang Feng smiled faintly and said, "Just say it. We're a family. There's nothing to hide." Although Zhang Feng's words were very normal and natural, listening to the two girls' ears, there was another layer of meaning. Nyo Jinda couldn't help but stare at the two girls with his eyes wide open. The way he stared at the two girls changed. It seemed that he wanted to see something different from the two girls. Could it be that this guy suddenly changed his personality and took these two girls? Chapter 989. At this time, Zhang Yuyao and Jingshu's faces were red from embarrassment. Jingshu was wearing a veil, so nothing could be seen. However, from the way she gripped Zhang Feng's hand, it could be seen that her heart wasn't calm. As for Zhang Yuyao, who didn't know how to hide her thoughts, it was needless to say. Her beautiful eyes were twinkling like little stars. Nyo Jinda looked at Zhang Feng with a smile that wasn't a smile. He coughed and asked, "What exactly is this Mitsubishi bayonet you were talking about? How come I've never heard of it before? Can you tell me in detail what this thing is used for? Don't tell me this thing is the invincible spear you were talking about?" Hearing this, Zhang Feng instantly felt a headache. How should he describe this thing? It would be endless to talk about it, but since he had nothing to do now, Zhang Feng could only tell Nyo Jinda the whole story of the Mitsubishi bayonet. After touching his chest, Zhang Feng finally took out the thing from his chest. In Zhang Feng's chest was an exquisitely made Mitsubishi bayonet. Not only was it equipped with a handle, but Zhang Feng also used his own knowledge and ergonomics to add some other things into it. Therefore, not only could it be fitted perfectly with a firearm, it could also become a perfect weapon when held in the hand. The 3 blood-draining troughs had already been painted with bright red paint. Coupled with the crisscrossing striped grooves and the cold glinting 3-sided edge, Nyo Jinda stared at the Mitsubishi bayonet and felt a chill down his spine. Although Zhang Feng didn't want the two girls to see this thing, he didn't think too much about it. However, at this time, Nyo Jinda was staring at the thing in Zhang Feng's hand. "Feng Zi, this is the Mitsubishi bayonet? This thing doesn't look like a sword, nor a dagger, nor a saber. Is this thing really useful?" After a moment of excitement and anticipation, Nyo Jinda couldn't help but feel a little discouraged. Seeing this, Zhang Feng was not angry. Instead, he looked at Nyo Jinda with a mocking expression and threw the Mitsubishi knife in his hand to him. "Do you see that tree? Go and try it." Nyo Jinda was speechless and a little disappointed. He tossed the military knife in his hand. This thing was not as sharp as his axe. It was as light as a firewood stick in his hand. He seriously doubted the use of this thing. However, Zhang Feng had already said so and even revealed a sly smile. Nyo Jin could not help but be alarmed. Once this brat revealed such a despicable expression, something big was bound to happen. He still followed Zhang Feng's instructions. He waved the Mitsubishi knife in his hand and casually stabbed at the pine tree that was as thick as a wash basin. But this time it didn't matter. The next moment, Nyo Jinda was instantly stunned. Although it was said to be a casual stab, he still used a little bit of strength. After all, this thing had a sharp edge, so no matter what, it would still leave a mark on the tree. But what he never expected was that his ordinary stab actually caused the 5-inch-long Mitsubishi military knife to sink more than half into the tree trunk. At this moment, Niu Jinda's eyes couldn't help but fiercely shrink. Even the hair on his body stood up. He asked in astonishment, Fengzi, you tell me honestly. Is this plaything the one you mentioned before, the one that can break through anything? Before he finished, Zhang Feng hurriedly made a shushing gesture and said with a smile, It is the thing I said. Yes. Well, Niu Jinda heard this and couldn't help but take a deep breath. He didn't believe it and pulled the Mitsubishi knife out of the trunk. Then he used all his strength to stab at the trunk. But the next moment an even more terrifying scene appeared. At this time, under his full concentration, he only felt that it was as easy as piercing through the body of a lamb. This Mitsubishi knife would definitely sink into the trunk. Niu Jinda's eyelids couldn't help but twitch. He hurriedly pulled Zhang Feng to the side and pointed at the Mitsubishi knife. He asked, Brat, tell me honestly. Tell me what this thing can do. Don't be so wishy-washy, okay? Believe it or not, Lao Tzu will beat you up if you annoy him. Zhang Feng crossed his arms in front of his chest and said with incomparable arrogance, You want to know? But when he saw Niu Jinda's murderous eyes, Zhang Feng shrunk his neck and said, Actually, this thing's function is not only that. Did you see the 3 red grooves on it? In fact, that thing is used for bleeding. If it pierces an animal or a human body, then these 3 grooves and the 3 blades will continuously cause the person to bleed, making the wound unable to heal. And you see the crisscrossing holes on the Mitsubishi knife. These will completely destroy the muscle tissue of the injured area. Therefore, under normal circumstances, this thing must not be left outside. Once this thing falls into the hands of the enemy, you can imagine the consequences. Previously, when we were in the smelter, Old Chen had already tested it. He got a set of Mingguang armor from who knows where, that set of Mingguang armor that was worn by generals in the army. Guess what the result was? With my strength, I can easily pierce through the hardest part of the breastplate. If I stab him 3 times in one breath, do you think? Zhang Feng did not finish his words, but the rest of the words did not need to be said. Niu Jinda held the Mitsubishi knife tightly in his hand, but Niu Jinda mercilessly snatched it from his hand. You want it? Who the hell doesn't want it? Niu Jinda asked back. Zhang Feng did not hesitate to put the thing into his arms. He held his head indifferently and turned around to lead the 2 women slowly out of the forest. He said, If you want it, send your confidant to quickly get this thing. If you are late, I can't guarantee that Lao Li or Old Chen will send the first batch to Chiotzi. Hearing this, how could Niu Jinda sit still? He hurriedly picked up a handful of stones from the ground and threw them in different directions. He shouted in a low voice, What are you bastards waiting for? Hurry up and get this thing for Lao Tzu. If you are late, when you come back, Lao Tzu's legs will be removed. Chapter 990. Beside the waterfall of White Deer College. Yu Shernan and the other 3 sat around a stone table under a jujube tree. The poker cards on the stone table were still blown all over the place by the wind, but these did not attract their attention. Even the jujubes on the jujube tree, which were their favorite, could not make them happy. It seemed that ever since Zhang Feng left, the few of them had started to feel unhappy. It was as if they had something on their minds. At this moment, Sun Simiao, who had also hurried down the mountain with a basket of herbs on his back, saw the appearance of the few people, and a hint of disappointment flashed in his eyes. He threw the empty basket of herbs on his back to the ground and sat down beside the few people, sighing. When this kid was here, he was quite annoying, but I didn't expect that after he left, I really couldn't bear to part with him. I wonder how he is doing in Lantian. Yu Shernan smiled bitterly and passed the teapot beside him to Sun Simiao. I heard that during this mid-autumn hunt, the Hongwen Guan and the Imperial College colluded to go against our White Deer College. Sigh. Ouyang Sun slammed the stone table. If I knew, we would have gone with them. If we went, old man would like to see what kind of tricks those guys can pull. At this moment, Shiva's unique voice sounded from afar. Hearing this, everyone hurriedly looked in the direction Shiva came from. After a while, Shiva hurriedly appeared beside them. Without waiting for him to catch his breath, Ouyang Sun hurriedly asked, Did Fengzi send a message? Shiva first shook his head, then nodded. It's a message from Erpi Ling, but it's not from Master. It's from Master Niu. Hearing that it was Niu Jinda, their eyes flashed. Ouyang Sun asked again, Sit down and tell us slowly. Niu Jinda had been in Lantian for some time, but there had been no news. However, they also knew what Niu Jinda was doing. First of all, Niu Jinda had already met up with that kid. As for safety, with Niu Jinda around, who would dare to touch that kid? After Shiva recovered slightly, Ouyang Sun hurriedly said, Hurry up and tell me what happened to your teacher. How is the mid-autumn hunt going? Shiva couldn't care less about their identities. After panting for a long time, he took out a letter and handed it to Ouyang Sun. There was a cow drawn on the cover of the letter. This was Nyo Jinda's unique symbol for letters, especially since this cow only had one horn. In this world, other than Nyo Jinda, no one else would draw a cow like this. Seeing this, their eyes lit up and they hurriedly opened the envelope. In the letter, he recounted everything that had happened to Zhang Feng at Erpi Ridge. Nyo Jinda even bragged about the coal mine and Taiyuan Wang clan. They automatically filtered out Nyo Jinda's bragging and mainly focused on Zhang Feng's part. When they saw that Zhang Feng was really targeted on the mountain, the old men who were over 50 years old slammed the table and threw the chairs in anger. When they saw how Zhang Feng had actually cleverly used the Imperial College in Hongwenguan to set up a trap, not to mention how he had cleverly ruined the scheme. He had even unrestrainedly promoted the teaching philosophy of White Deer College, causing everyone on the mountain to be fired up. The old men couldn't help but laugh heartily. Haha, old man knew that this grandson had the most wicked ideas. Who would have thought that these two sly old foxes would actually fall into the hands of that kid Zhang Feng? Awesome. How delightful. Isn't that so? I've already said that this kid doesn't like to be taken advantage of. If it weren't for the fact that we're already so old, do you think we would have been able to survive until now? Chu Suiliang glanced at Ouyang Sun and said, "Usually, aren't you the one who hates to see this kid the most?" Ouyang Sun stroked his beard and said without blushing or panting, "Old man, this is called beating people up. The more you like a talent, the harder you should beat him up. Jade won't become anything if it's not cut and polished." Ah, fine. What you said makes sense. But what we should be concerned about now is how to make these people suffer again when they reach the mountain, right? Yu Shernan's voice fell. The old men's eyes flashed involuntarily. They gathered together like children and began to discuss with each other. Ouyang Sun took the lead and said, "Old man thinks that at this time the football on the mountain is still not good enough. But think about it, this basketball is still very promising." That kid said this before. Coupled with the morning exercise, the old man thinks that this will be an unforgettable scene for these people. No. Yu Shernan knocked on the table and pointed to the letter and said, "Look, this kid has made such a big deal this time. If we follow the previous plan, it's very likely that we will lose face. Why don't we play a big game?" Ouyang Sun looked at Yu Shernan with some worry. He suspected that this old man had brainwashed Zhang Feng. He asked, "Tell me about it. As long as we don't go overboard, we can still talk about it." Yu Shernan smiled and looked around. He said, "Actually, we are a little too conservative. After going up the mountain, look at this place. Is there anything that we have seen before? Or is there something familiar? So, we should learn from that kid. Since these people want to make things difficult for us now, right? Then why don't we be more high profile?" Chapter 991. After all, Nyo Jinda's men were not qualified to enter the Imperial Palace. Compared to entering Shao Mountain, it was much easier. At this time, Nyo Jinda's men finally waited for Zhang Sun Wuji at the entrance of the Imperial Palace with great difficulty. At this time, it was already 4:45 in the afternoon. Zhang Sun Wuji naturally knew Nyo Jinda's men. As soon as they met, Zhang Sun Wuji waved his hand and turned back, leading the man into the Imperial Palace in a hurry. As soon as they entered the Imperial Palace, Zhang Sun Wuji took the opportunity to ask while waiting on the Vermilion Bird Bridge, "Are you here with news of the mid-autumn hunt?" When the guard heard this, he hurriedly said, replying to Minister Zhao, "This time I'm here with two pieces of news. One is about the Wang clan and the coal mine. The other is about the mid-autumn hunt." Hearing this, Zhang Sun Wuji could also understand the importance of this and did not say anything more. He knew that this was not a good place to talk. He just wanted to prepare in advance. He had a hunch that Nyo Jinda's men would come. It seemed to be related to the coal mine. However, he did not expect that it was related to the Wang clan's men. This made things difficult. As for Zhang Feng, the people in the Imperial Palace were not worried about that kid at all. As long as his brother did not harm others, they would be grateful. Hoping that others would harm him? It depended on who that person was. Just the people from the Imperial College in Hongwenguan alone. If it was not that Zhang Sun Wuji looked down on them, they were not even qualified to carry Zhang Feng's shoes. This was the truth. Zhang Sun Wuji did not favor anyone. The two of them waited for almost an hour again. The commander of the Jinwu guards rode a big horse and personally came to escort the two of them into Taiji Palace. In the imperial study, Li Shimin and Li Yuan also seemed to be discussing something. Li Shimin waved his hand and said, "Let's talk first. How did the Erpi Gully coal mine get involved with the Wang family? I remember hearing that the Wang family hasn't been to Erpi Gully for a long time. Is it because there's a member of the Wang family among you? Li Shimin looked at Li Shimin and said. The guard was so scared that his whole body trembled. This was the first time he had seen the emperor at such a close distance. Although it was enough for him to brag about it for the rest of his life, the might of the emperor still made him somewhat afraid to breathe. Your Majesty, this is what happened this time. We were ordered to go to Erpi Ridge. As soon as we arrived, General Nyo had already sent people to buy the entire Erpi Valley, including a large piece of land in Erpi Ridge. He also announced to the public that General Nyo was going to build a residence there and retire there. Li Shimin frowned slightly. If that's the case, shouldn't it have attracted the Wang clan's people? Or should I say the coal mine here has already alarmed the Wang clan? Li Shimin's heart could not help but sink slightly. Could it be that the Lantian County government, which was the closest to Chang'an, was also the Wang clan's people? Just as Li Shimin was about to let Xiao Gizi investigate this Lantian County government, the guard said again, Your Majesty, this matter may also be related to Prince Zhang. When the guard said this, Li Shimin and Li Yuan looked at each other and asked almost at the same time, Speak quickly. Zhang Feng's matter was quite complicated. This time, someone was obviously targeting him. As for changing the target, Li Shimin and Li Yuan as well as the Guogong were still having headaches. No one knew who was targeting Zhang Feng. At this time, hearing the guard's words, who were Li Shimin and Li Yuan, they thought of something in an instant. The guard hurriedly said, Your Majesty, a few days ago on the second day after General Nyo took down Erpi Ling, the Wang clan's people came up the mountain. General Nyo also thought that these people came because of the coal mine, but today, after a secret meeting with Prince Zhang at the foot of the mountain, he learned that all of this seemed to be related to Prince Zhang's mid-autumn hunt. Hearing this, Li Shimin and Li Yuan could not help but be shocked. Was this mid-autumn hunt so difficult? The duo's countenances suddenly turned grim. Li Shimin waved his hand and said, Are you sure what you said is true? It's true. I heard it with my own ears. Hearing this, Li Shimin's face suddenly changed. Come in. Little Gizi, who was guarding outside the door, hurriedly entered the imperial study. Li Shimin said with a gloomy face, Pass down my order. Immediately investigate all the properties of the Taiyuan Wang clan in Chang'an City. Knock on those who should be knocked on, and spread the news that the retired emperor is a guest on the mountain. If anyone doesn't know what's good for them, feel free to come. Little Gizi and the guard kneeling on the ground were instantly shocked. Was the emperor preparing to attack the Taiyuan Wang clan? Was the emperor really ready to go to war with those aristocratic families? Little Gizi did not dare to be careless. He hurriedly went to the Ministry of Internal Servants to draft a secret edict. At this time Li Shimin said, Did Zhang Feng say what to do about this? Prince Zhang said to let me and others go to the smelting workshop of White Deer College to get 100 Mitsubishi bayonets. At this time they should have gone up the mountain. Chapter 992. After sending the person away, Li Shimin paced back and forth in the imperial study for a long time before saying, Father, what do you think Fengzi means by doing this? Li Yuan smiled as he smoked his cigarette. He said faintly, You've been with that kid for such a long time. Can't you see that this kid is someone who can be persuaded by reason but not cowed by force? This time he might really be angry. These people have touched his bottom line. If it were you and me, what do you think would happen? Li Yuan said so. Li Shimin was silent. In his eyes, Zhang Feng had always been a lazy and carefree person who had nothing to do. He had always been careless about many things. This was also one of the reasons why Zhang Feng could attract people. However, this kid was extremely sinister. Once someone offended him or someone he didn't like, they would be in big trouble. Just like what was written in a handwritten letter from Nyo Jinda on Li Shimin's desk. This kid turned the mid-autumn hunt into his storytelling in a tea house. Not only did he not let these two people laugh at him, but he also made White Deer College famous. What was this? This was simply a godlike operation. Everyone has been misled by this kid's appearance. Although this kid is not a good person, he is not a bad person either. He just wants to live the life he wants to live. However, these people are always thinking of ways to annoy him and mess with him. You think even a rabbit will bite when it's anxious. What do you think this kid will do when he's anxious? Li Shimin couldn't help but be at a loss for words. From the current situation, this kid was really angry. From the fairy cream incident to using the mid-autumn hunt and the environment of Erpi Ridge, he wanted to kill Zhang Feng there. These people's intentions were simply terrible. Li Shimin gave several orders in succession. All the orders were directed at the three core departments of the Ministry of Works, the Ministry of Rights, and the Imperial College in Hongwen-Guan. Li Shimin had long wanted to move these departments. However, he had never had the opportunity, time and capital to contend with these aristocratic families. But now, due to the emergence of the cooperative and the opening of the waterway trade, as well as the Mitsubishi bayonet and the gun that Zhang Feng made at this time, Li Shimin wanted to completely concentrate all the power in his hands, as Zhang Feng said. And now, Zhang Feng was preparing to do this at this time, which also gave Li Shimin an opportunity. Erlang, you have to think clearly. Once you fight with the 5 surnames and 7 Wang and the Guanlong aristocratic family, it will inevitably cause the people in Shandong will react. Are you sure you can deal with it? With the current situation in the Tang Dynasty? Li Shimin couldn't help but hesitate. Li Yuan was right. These aristocratic families were basically of the same breadth and branch. If there was only one person in the east, it could almost be said to be fighting against these aristocratic families at the same time. If these aristocratic families took any action, it would be a big earthquake for the Tang Dynasty. In addition, the Tang Dynasty's periphery was unstable at this time. If such a thing happened at this time, what would happen? Li Shimin couldn't help but be silent. At this time, seeing Li Shimin like this, Li Yuan sighed and said, "In fact, all this is not your fault. This is the cancer deposited by the previous dynasty. I think if you want to do it, you should start with the imperial court. After all, the Ministry of Works, the Ministry of Rights, and the Ministry of Works are the important core of the Tang Dynasty. These people hit a little deeply before, so we couldn't do anything. But now that these people have jumped out, we have a reason to get rid of these arrogant guys." In fact, Li Yuan was very clear about the reason why the Sui dynasty fell and why the Tang dynasty could rise so quickly. It was that night in Taiyuan when he had a talk with the Guanlong 8 great families, as well as the people of the 5 surnames and 7 clans, which made the Li family of Longxi recognize his identity, and thus laid the foundation for the Li Tang dynasty. However, to get rid of the restraint of these aristocratic families, Li Yuan had been working hard all the time. However, after the last incident, Li Yuan gradually distanced himself from the imperial court. But at this time he really saw hope. The reason why he reconciled with Li Shimin was that he saw in Zhang Feng the shadow of getting rid of these aristocratic families and making the Tang dynasty truly glorious. Therefore at this time, Li Yuan's heart, which had long been extinguished, was burning again. The imperial study was completely silent. As time went by, slowly, the setting sun had long been hidden in the mountains of Qinling. A bright moon, which had not been seen for a long time, hung high in the sky of the imperial palace, like a lantern. Under the cover of the night, the lights in the imperial study flickered as people discussed something in low voices. Outside the imperial study, although it was already night, the night sky was like a monster with its bloody mouth wide open, looking down at the busy figures on the ground with a ferocious expression. Chapter 993. The next morning. In the sky it started to drizzle again. The temperature in the air suddenly dropped. At this time, it seemed to be telling everyone that the majesty of autumn was inviolable. The grassland on Pyrolite Mountain was wet. Before dawn, a group of students and craftsmen in the mountain were running around Pyrolite Mountain while chanting songs that could shake the entire heaven realm. On Shao Mountain there was also a group of students wearing undershirts. They were sweating on the basketball court that was built on the thatched beach between the teaching building and the dormitory building. At this time there was no longer the appearance of the thatched beach. Instead, there were more than 10 or 20 basketball courts of various sizes. At this time, on the basketball court, Yu Shernan and others were taking the lead and hitting the basketball on the court. Their movements were simply unsightly. The students who were watching by the side burst into exclamations from time to time. At this moment, Sun Simiao grabbed Chu Suelyang's beard and snatched the basketball from his hand. Then he smugly ran straight into a student. That student had long been scared speechless by their godly actions. Seeing Sun Simiao coming, how could he dare to block it? He hurriedly stepped aside and made a gesture of invitation. At this time, fortunately, Zhang Feng was not here. Otherwise, he would be so angry that he would vomit blood. A ball hit the backboard. The force that the hardest sandalwood could counterbalance still made the backboard burst into painful groans. "How is it, Brother Bashi? I told you to practice the 5 animal frolics technique with old man, but you didn't want to. Now you know that your physical strength can't keep up, right?" Sun Simiao wiped the sweat on his face and sat on the side of the basketball court, panting, drinking hot tea. The remaining 4 old men played again. They seemed to feel that playing with this group of students was not fun, so they resentfully gave up the basketball court. Sitting on the side of the basketball court, Chu Suelyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I have to admit that I'm old. It hasn't been a quarter of an hour and I'm so tired that I can't stand straight. Tomorrow you have to prescribe me a good tonic to nourish my body. Sun Simiao glanced at Chu Suelyang's terrifying belly and his eyelids twitched. Old man, I feel that Feng Zi's method is really suitable for you. How so? Chu Suelyang asked while panting. Don't tell me that what this kid said about prolonging one's life is true. This thing can fool others, but we are not old fools. Sun Simiao was stunned. But it all seemed to be true. That thing was really something. However, Sun Simiao still shook his head and said, You're wrong. This thing is indeed good for your health, especially for someone like you. You're so fat and you don't have much exercise. If you can really exercise according to this method, although it can't prolong your life, it can at least let you live for a few more years. Moreover, it can also relieve your asthma and even cure it. Do you believe me? This time not only Chu Suelyang but also Yu Shernan, Ouyang Sun, and the other two were completely shocked. Their eyes were wide open. They pointed at the students who were dodging and jumping on the basketball court and said, Old Sun, don't tell me that this is a joke? Because this thing is really not funny at all. Sun Simiao shrugged. I'm telling the truth. Old man really underestimated this thing before. Did he really think that this thing was born out of the 5 animal frolics? Old man, to be honest, although some things are indeed born out of the shadow of the 5 animal frolics, this basketball is better. To put it bluntly, Feng Zi hasn't said that this thing can be used in the military. Otherwise, do you think we will have a chance? Yu Shernan said with a little lack of confidence. It seems that Feng Zi once said that this thing can be used in military training. This time, the 4 of them instantly fell silent. However, the passion in their eyes didn't diminish in the slightest. Previously, when Zhang Feng said that this thing could strengthen the body, they thought that it was just a saying. Now they had personally experienced it. Putting this aside, with Sun Simiao's praise, how could it be fake? It must be known that Sun Simiao and the few of them had been friends for decades. Everyone knew Sun Simiao's character. When they heard Sun Simiao's words, everyone looked at the basketball court not far away. Just as they were about to go up and move their seemingly rusty bones, Sun Simiao smiled and said, That's enough. You are all old bones. If you continue like this, your bodies will be the first to be unable to take it. Let's go, let's go. Let's go and study how to link this morning exercise, running exercise, and basketball. Feng Zi has already dealt with the mid-autumn hunt. We should also put in some effort and let those people see what kind of existence White Deer College is. Chapter 994. Erpi Gully was bustling with activity today. From afar, people from the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rights had joined forces with the local county magistrate to surround the area. The purpose of this was to allow these students to hunt safely, so as to prevent any commoners from accidentally entering and suffering unnecessary injuries. And in this Erpi Gully, when Ching Chumo and the others entered, all the students of White Deer Institute and Chang and University were like releasing a tiger back into the mountain. They quickly gathered together, along with each other. All the students had been warned in advance by Cheng Chumo and the others and brought over. People from the Ministry of Works and the others usually wouldn't enter during the hunt. They didn't have the patience to follow a group of half-grown children around the mountain. At this moment, the mountain had become the home ground of Cheng Chumo and the others. Cheng Chumo stood on a large rock and imitated Zhang Feng. He waved his hands at the crowd and coughed. I believe everyone has heard of my name. However, for those who don't know my name, listen carefully to Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu is Chin Tiniu, a person who can make Chang and city tremble with a stomp of his feet. This is young Master Li. Of course, as long as he says the word, you won't be able to control whether you live or die. Get to the point. Li Chengqian cupped his fists elegantly and reminded Cheng Chumo softly. Cheng Chumo said, You must have heard that White Deer College is under the protection of the Crown Prince. Who is the Crown Prince? He is second only to one person and above millions. We all work for the Crown Prince. To put it bluntly, White Deer College and Chang and University are under the Crown Prince. Do you want to go against the Crown Prince? Hearing this, the expressions of the students who were still indignant finally changed. This was because Ching Tini took out a jade pendant from his chest. This jade pendant was nothing special. But the key point was that there were 2 natural yellow ribbons on the jade plate. A skilled craftsman had carved these 2 yellow ribbons into 2 dragons. Everyone in the world who was educated knew about this. Moreover, everyone had a jade pendant on their waist. Although no one had seen this jade pendant before, the teacher had taught them about it during their first lesson in etiquette. The Crown Prince token. This was carved from genuine Hitian jade. In the world, no one dared to carve dragon patterns on this jade, except for the imperial family or those who were bestowed by the imperial family. Anyone who touched it would die. At this moment, Cheng Chumo saw that everyone was stunned by the crown prince's jade pendant. He then proudly waved the jade pendant in his hand and said, "Now listen carefully to every word that Lao Tzu said. What Dean Zhangfeng said just now is true. I can also reveal a piece of news to you. If you know what's good for you this time, in 3 years, White Deer College will make an exception and invite you up the mountain. I think you are all smart people and will know what to choose, right? Choose? Choose your ass. You even took out the crown prince's jade pendant. Do we have a choice?" If they had known that the rumors were true, Lao Tzu wouldn't have participated in this mid-autumn hunt. The students of Imperial College in Hongwen-Guan couldn't help but burst into discussions. Then someone said, "Young Master Chen, my surname is Ji and my name is Huanxiang. My courtesy name is Anka. My surname is Ku and my name is Yuxiang." As the students revealed their names one by one, they said shamelessly, "I hope young Master Chen can put in a few good words for us in front of President Zhang. When the time comes, we will do whatever you ask us to do. How about it?" They were on the right track. Cheng Chumo glanced at Li Qingqian and waved his hand. Then he waved his hand smugly. "I'm tired. This hunt, I understand. How can we let young Master Chen and young Master Li do such a vulgar thing? Let's go hunting now, let's go." Cheng Chumo sighed and said, "But Lao Tzu is afraid that someone will complain. What should we do? Our dean doesn't know anything about this." When everyone heard this, the young man surnamed Ku's face immediately turned serious. He waved the dagger in his hand and said, "Everyone should know about Dean Zhangfeng's capabilities. I'm sure you have yearned for young Master Zhangfeng's toast to the gods for a long time, right? That's why we are taking action. Those who go stand here. Those who don't, you know the consequences." His words were full of threats. This made the young man from the Imperial College in Hongwen-Guan a little scared. But in the face of power, everyone could only submit. Then the group of people rushed into the forest as if they had gone mad, looking for prey. When everyone was far away, Cheng Chumo sat on the ground and smiled at Li Qingqian. "How was it? Isn't this settled? I told you that this group of people was born in the year of the mule. We had to teach them a lesson." Li Qingqian looked at Cheng Chumo and said worriedly, "I don't know if what you did was right. I hope Fengzi doesn't know about this." Ma Zhou, Hao Chujun, Lai Ji and the others were like fossils in the wind. They were in a state of confusion from the beginning until now. Where am I? Where am I? What the hell am I doing? What did I just see? Chapter 995. Li Qingqian was always very vigilant towards everything, especially when it came to deciding to do everything. From a certain perspective, he seemed to be very impressive on the surface. But Cheng Chumo and the others also knew that there was a deep sense of inferiority in Li Qingqian's bones. After all, his father was the current emperor Li Shimin. And those brothers of his were all very intelligent, especially the fourth prince Li Tai. He was deeply loved by Li Shimin, Empress Zhangsun, and even Li Yuan. Could be said that he was extremely favored. Although this guy always refused to admit his flaws as childhood playmates, Cheng Chumo, Du Go and the others still knew Li Qingqian very well. Li Qingqian liked to haggle over right and wrong, gains and losses. For example, right now. Once the crown prince's decree was issued, what if those aristocratic families passed this matter to the Chancellor of the Imperial College, or the Ministry of Works and Ministry of Rights? What would happen? And if Fengzi knew about it, what would he do? He would always weigh the best solution in the midst of his worries. At this time, Du Go, Wei Shuyu and the others looked at the dazed Li Qingqian and couldn't help but shake their heads slightly. Although they could usually fool around without a care in the world, they knew that Li Qingqian's worries were too heavy. This was also why the emperor wanted Li Qingqian to come and learn from Zhang Feng. Also, how could the emperor not know about Li Qingqian's frequent visits to Yen Lai Lu? The crown prince was one of the 4 great demon kings. How could the emperor not know? These matters, as long as one was familiar with them, they would be able to understand the reasoning behind it. It was just that the current Li Qingqian still couldn't let it go. The others also didn't want to point it out. After all, the matter was very simple. It was just that Li Qingqian couldn't accept it, so what could they do? They were very envious of Li Qingqian. Because Zhang Feng and the others basically all learned one thing each, but they put in a lot of effort on this kid. Whatever they learned, they would pass on to him. But what about Li Qingqian? He was always afraid of the tiger in front and the wolf behind. He could only rely on himself to comprehend this. No one could help him. At this moment, the mid-autumn hunt was about to begin, accompanied by the cries of the wild boar and the excited shouts of the students. The Tang emperors loved to hunt. Starting from Li Yuan, there were many records of Li Yuan hunting in the history of the Tang Dynasty. For example, the colonel hunted at Fuping, the colonel hunted at Huaqi, the colonel hunted at Nanshan, and so on. This south mountain was the Erpi Ridge of Lantian County. Hunting practically ran through Li Yuan's entire life as an emperor. Not only did he enjoy hunting, his sons were also the same. Every time they went hunting, Li Jianqing and Li Yuanji would follow. Li Yuanji even often said to others, "I'd rather not eat for 3 days than not hunt for a day." Therefore, after the incident at the Xuanwu Gate, Li Jianqing and Li Yuanji's hobby of hunting became strong evidence of their absurdity. However, criticism was one thing. After Li Shimin ascended the throne, there would still be time for hunting. Moreover, Li Shimin felt that this small-scale hunting was not enough, so the scale began to become bigger and bigger. Hunting was even included in the assessment of the academy every year. It was said that only hunters could show their intelligence and wisdom. With the excited shouts, Cheng Chumo and others looked at Li Qingqian. Finally, they gritted their teeth, picked up their weapons and joined the hunting team. Seeing this, after a slight hesitation, Li Qingqian also stood up, adjusted his state of mind, raised his arms and shouted, "Wait for me." After Li Qingqian approached, Cheng Chumo said half-jokingly, "What, have you thought it through?" Li Qingqian blushed and glared at Cheng Chumo. "Fengzi is right. We have to rely on ourselves for everything. Let's go. I don't believe that with our ability we can't beat them." Hearing this, only then did Cheng Chumo and the others burst into laughter. They knew that the knot in Li Qingqian's heart had not been untied. This was a long road. However, if he could understand this point, it proved that he had not stayed in Shao Mountain for so long in vain. Ma Zhou and others still followed behind them with a confused look. They did not know whether it was because the topic was too high-end or because the name of the 4 demon kings had shocked them. However, at this time, these stubborn people of Chang, and all gathered together, which was a rare grand occasion. Li Qingqian waved the dagger in his hand, like a small general in a white robe rushing in the front. The group of stubborn people behind him also followed Li Qingqian into the jungle with strange cries. Those students who were originally surrounding a wild boar suddenly saw Cheng Chumo and others rushing over with murderous intent. They hurriedly abandoned the target and scattered like birds and beasts. Li Qingqian excitedly rolled up his sleeves and said, "Don't move. Watch carefully how I tame this wild boar." When Cheng Chumo and others heard this, their faces could not help but change. They said with some hesitation, "How about I go?" Cheng Chumo did not even look at Cheng Chumo. He waved the dagger in his hand and rushed into the jungle. However, in the quiet jungle, after Li Qingqian's angry roar, Li Qingqian walked out of the jungle with his clothes in a mess. His expression did not change as he threw the dagger in his hand to Cheng Chumo and said, "I'm going to rest for a while. This wild boar spirit is yours." Chapter 996. On the other hand, Zhang Feng had nothing to do. He directly occupied the outpost where he saw Niu Jinda and used it as a temporary resting place. And this beach was also a good place to fish. In less than 2 hours, Zhang Feng caught almost a dozen fish, and these fish were mainly wild grass carps. Although there were many carps, Zhang Feng often ate them. But at this time, if he caught carps and gave these people a reason to criticize him, it would be a little bad. After all, the current emperor had gone crazy and issued an edict that people were not allowed to eat carps, saying that it was a rebellion against the Li family. This made Zhang Feng, who had always liked to eat carps, want to curse. Carps were the best food for picnics. But at this time, because of this matter, Zhang Feng could only endure it. After secretly sharing 2 big carps with his children, he hurriedly took a dozen big grass carps back, ready to win people's hearts and humiliate the dean of the Imperial College. As the dean, Lao Tzu took the lead. "Damn, you only know how to sit and eat ready-made food?" When Zhang Feng took the 2 girls back to the camp, he bumped into Qing Yaojin and an unfamiliar old man who exuded an air of nobility. The moment she saw the old man, Jingshu's face changed slightly. She trembled slightly. Zhang Feng didn't take it seriously. The old man was wearing a yellow robe with a dragon embroidered on it. His hair and beard were slightly gray, but the mustache around his lips was well trimmed. Zhang Feng almost wanted to touch the mustache to see if it was fake. Qing Yaojin saw Zhang Feng and immediately laughed. "Ha, come, brother Xiaogong, let me introduce you. This is Lao Li's most proud business partner, the youngest viscount of the Tang Dynasty, and the dean and chancellor of Chang and University and White Deer College, Zhang Feng." "Oh right, these 2 are his wives." Li Xiaogong's eyes narrowed slightly. He stroked his beard and looked at Zhang Feng. No one knew what he was thinking. Qing Yaojin pulled Zhang Feng aside and said, "Fengzi, come, this is a person with a great background. He is a prince and the minister of the Board of Rights." When Zhang Feng heard this, he thought to himself, as expected. This Li Xiaogong was quite a character. Although he was a noble prince, to be able to rely on his own ability to forcefully obtain the second position of the Lingyan Pavilion, it could be seen how high this person's political and military skills were. Behind him, several people dressed in bodyguard uniforms were all looking at Zhang Feng with incomparably sharp eyes. Behind this group of bodyguards were the three old guys from the Board of Rites and the Board of Works. They bowed and licked Zhang Feng's lips as they winked at him. Zhang Feng laughed and swung the rattan hanging around his neck. He stretched out his hand and said, "Hello, Lord Li. It's an honor to meet you. This little one has admired you for a long time, and your name is constantly ringing in this little one's ears." "Oh. Tell me, what did you hear?" Li Xiaogong didn't stretch out his hand. Zhang Feng awkwardly remembered that this was the Tang Dynasty. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Student Zhang Feng greets the minister. I just found out that the minister is coming in person, so I was a little excited and abrupt. I hope the minister won't blame me." Seeing Zhang Feng laughing, Li Xiaogong asked in a somewhat unpleasant tone, "It's rumored that the braised meat, fine salt, cigarettes, white paper, beer, barbecue, and the liquor Lao Li once gave me in Chang, and were all made by you?" "That's right." Zhang Feng smiled. Logically speaking, it was impossible to disturb such a big shot during the mid-autumn hunt. Zhang Feng looked at Qing Yaojin suspiciously. Qing Yaojin signaled him to calm down. Qing Yaojin said with a smile, "Lord Li, don't just stand there. Let's go and sit down and talk." "There's no need. I'm here today just to see this kid." Li Xiaogong didn't give Qing Yaojin face, which made the three officials of the Ministry of Works and Rites a little confused. They didn't know what these two clowns were up to. Li Xiaogong looked at Zhang Feng indifferently and asked, "Let me ask you, there is a rumor on the street that you as a cook have opened a tavern in Chang, and that no one visits. Usually there is no customer. Why have you opened 2 academies in such a flamboyant manner recently? What do you mean? Could it be that you want all of the scholars of Great Tang to be like you, becoming butchers? Then won't the Tang Dynasty be sneered at? Is he here to pick a fight?" Zhang Feng was somewhat unable to figure out what Li Xiaogong's intentions were. Furthermore, for this awesome person to be able to occupy the second place of the Lingyan Pavilion's 24 meritorious officials, there was still some truth to it. At this moment, Zhang Feng could only laugh dryly and apologetically. When the 3 officials of the Ministry of Works and Rites heard this, they couldn't help but feel happy. The 2 officials of the Hongwen Guan School and the Imperial College couldn't help but straighten their backs. They looked at Zhang Feng with a faint smile, as if waiting for him to explain. "Aha, Lord Li, what are you talking about? Although I did open a tavern before, who made the rule that people who open taverns can't read and learn? Can't teach and educate people? Take a look at Mr. Yushan. His journey has been a tragic and bumpy one. All of us have seen it with our own eyes. That's why this student only had this thought after learning about this matter. Furthermore, this student was in mourning before, so I didn't leave. However, the ambition in this student's heart has been brewing all the time. That's why I wanted to contribute my meager strength to these insignificant matters. As long as the Tang Dynasty is strong and prosperous, even if I have to sacrifice my life." "Okay, this official knows." Li Xiaogong was somewhat speechless and interrupted Zhang Feng. He had long heard that this kid's eloquence was outstanding, but now it seemed, it was really frightening. Chapter 997. This time it was mainly because he was curious about Zhang Feng. Last night, the emperor urgently summoned him to the palace to talk about this matter. Li Xiaogong was ready to see who this guy that the emperor and the retired emperor missed so much was. So he asked his good friend Qing Yaojin to set up a trap to test him. Li Xiaogong really admired Zhang Feng for what he had done before. But when he learned that Zhang Feng had such achievements in military affairs, he couldn't help but be shocked by Zhang Feng. But it was better to hear about him than to meet him. At this time, seeing Zhang Feng's improper behavior, Li Xiaogong was a little angry. As the chancellor of the academy and a viscount, he actually hung such a dirty thing around his neck and didn't even take it off when he saw him. This matter was Fengzi. Qing Yaojin walked to the 2 people secretly and whispered to Zhang Feng, pointing at his neck. Zhang Feng suddenly realized and patted his head, saying, "Oh right, I almost forgot. Old Qin, what time is it now?" Qing Yaojin was a little speechless. After a long time he said, "It's the last quarter." "It's the last quarter? Lord Li, you haven't eaten yet, right? Come, this is what I just got from hunting. As the dean, I think I have to take the lead, so I brought my family to the river to hunt more than 10 fish. Now I'll cook it for you to satisfy your craving. How about it?" Qing Yaojin's face was a little embarrassed. Was this what he meant? "I'm telling you to throw away all the things on your neck. Why were you so silly? The smiles on the faces of the people from the Ministry of Works became wider, and some even couldn't help it. Li Xiaogong was made to laugh by Zhang Feng's act. Now that you mention it, I do feel a little hungry. I heard that your cooking skills are good. Old Li has also opened many restaurants in Chang'an. Although the names are a little unpleasant to hear, the food there is really a unique flavor. Well, you can cook it and let me have a taste. Zhang Feng seriously suspected that Lao Li was Li Xiaogong's relative. But when he thought about it carefully, the history records were still a little vague about Li Xiaogong's relatives, so he couldn't help but be a little suspicious. But now that Li Xiaogong said so, he didn't care about it and pulled the two girls to go to a small ditch. Until now. Li Xiaogong glanced at the people behind him and snorted coldly. The purpose of the mid-autumn hunt is to take the lead. Look at Zhang Feng, how old is he? He's the dean of 2 academies and has so many achievements, but he's not arrogant because of his talent. Look at all of you, what are you doing? I'm looking at the 17 fish hanging around Zhang Feng's neck. After today's hunt, each of you must hand over 10 fish to me. If you can't do it, you can resign yourselves. When they heard this, their faces suddenly changed. They didn't dare to say anything. They hurriedly lifted the hem of their official robes and ran out. After they left, Li Xiaogong and Qing Yaojin laughed loudly. Old Hey, you lost. Remember that you still owe me 50 kilograms of white paper and 30 jars of white wine. Qing Yaojin was a little angry. How did you know that this kid would fall for this trick? Li Xiaogong smiled but didn't say anything. Looking at the backs of Zhang Feng and the other two in the distance, he walked with Qing Yaojin to Zhang Feng with his hands behind his back and said, "It's actually very simple. Zhang Feng is a very simple and pure person, and what I said is reasonable. Did I say something wrong?" "That's true." Qing Yaojin thought for a while and couldn't help but give a thumbs up. "I admire you, I really admire you. But, is it really okay to do this?" "It's okay. This time I came here to see what these people are up to. I also want to meet the people of the Wang family. I remember that I haven't killed anyone from their family for a long time." Li Xiaogong didn't hide his intention to kill at all. Since last night, the emperor had been investigating this matter. He was also very angry about it and was worried that Qing Yaojin and Yo Jinda wouldn't be able to handle it. That was why he called them over. After all, although Li Xiaogong was the Minister of Personnel now, he still had the deterrence from the past. Therefore he was the most suitable person to come. "Lord Li, Old Chen, come over quickly. I'll give you a paper-wrapped fish today." At this moment, Zhang Feng was waving at the two of them excitedly. Li Xiaogong and Qing Yaojin heard this and the gloominess on their faces disappeared. "Let's go. This kid is really carefree." Li Xiaogong shook his head speechlessly. On the other hand, Qing Yaojin smiled and said, "I think Wang clan and the people of the Imperial College are thinking the same thing about Zhang Feng." Li Xiaogong was stunned. "What? The Mitsubishi bayonet will be in old Nyo's hands tonight. What do you think this kid is up to?" Qing Yaojin looked at Zhang Feng with a complicated expression and said, "This kid has probably prepared an inescapable trap and is waiting for these people to take the bait. You mustn't underestimate Zhang Feng. Otherwise, just think about that old man Yuqi and you'll know." Li Xiaogong was stunned. Is this kid really that powerful? It's really that strange. Chapter 998. Afternoons always flew by quickly. Unknowingly, the sun had already slowly hung on the western horizon. At this time, Li Xiaogong, with a face full of shock, sat down on a stool in the middle of the camp in the valley with the help of Qing Yaojin. Qing Yaojin said speechlessly, "The sun has already set. Why haven't these little bastards come back yet? Could it be that something happened?" Without waiting for him to finish, Qing Yaojin heard the rustling of footsteps not far away. The first thing that came into view was Cheng Chumo and the others. Although Cheng Chumo and the others' clothes were tattered, and many of them even had wounds on their bodies, Li Qingqian's face had been cut by something unknown. At this time, the blood had already dried and the wound didn't seem to be deep. And on their shoulders they were all carrying prey big and small. Cheng Chumo carried 2 wild boars on his shoulders, and Li Qingqian carried a wolf on his back. Although he was the most embarrassed at this time, it could be seen that he was really excited at this time. Seeing that Li Qingqian was fine and had even hunted a wolf, Li Xiaogong and Qing Yaojin were really greatly shocked. Qing Yaojin then hurried to the riverside and called Zhang Feng and the other two who were leisurely enjoying themselves. Jingshu, Zhang Yuyao and Zhang Feng were sent to the barracks. It was better not to let them see these things, lest they feel uncomfortable at night. With 2 beautiful women lying beside them, it was already quite a test of a person's endurance. In addition, if they were frightened now, then Zhang Feng would have to suffer at night. When Zhang Feng arrived, Li Qingqian and the others were shocked and stood valiantly in the field of Camp D. Zhang Feng was also shocked by everyone's prey. When Zhang Feng walked in, Li Xiaogong patted the stool next to him and said, "Brother Zhang, come, sit here. I'll introduce you to a few great talents later." Zhang Feng was a little speechless. "Didn't you just give some pointers on the marching battle formation? Now you're not leading the troops. Why do you always want to pester Lao Tzu? If you weren't the boss of the Ministry of Personnel, Lao Tzu wouldn't bother with you." But at this time, Zhang Feng could only admit defeat. He laughed dryly and sat beside Li Xiaogong. When Li Qingqian and the others saw how close Zhang Feng and Li Xiaogong were, they all gaped and looked at Zhang Feng with a stunned face. Motherf ***, what happened today? Why was Li Xiaogong, commonly known as the King of Hell, bought over by Zhang Feng in just one afternoon? What the ***? What's going on? Li Xiaogong didn't care about everyone's gazes. He pointed at the people from White Deer College and Chang and Academy and said, "These people are not bad. Look at that guy who's as thin as a chicken but he actually hunted a wolf. His courage is commendable. Not bad, not bad. As a student, you can use your wits to hunt a wolf without hurting yourself. 3 years later, I'll guarantee your promotion." Li Xiaogong pretended not to know Li Qingqian and pretended to praise him. However, Li Xiaogong was really surprised by Li Qingqian. He was usually gentle and weak. He didn't expect him to have such explosive power. Zhang Feng chuckled and said, "Lord Li, this person is Li Qingqian. He's Lao Li's son." Li Xiaogong pretended to be shocked. "What? He's Lao Li's son? My goodness, not bad, not bad. 3 years later, it seems like Lao Li's family will be able to embark on an official career. Ha ha ha." As he spoke, Li Xiaogong pointed at Fang Yai and said, "This guy is not bad either. Look, he actually hunted 2 badgers. Old man knows about badgers. They're especially hard to catch. According to old man's knowledge, badgers are extremely rare around Chang and not bad, not bad. His luck is not bad. This seems to be your second son, old hey?" Cheng Chumo was waiting expectantly, but when he heard Li Xiaogong's words, his face instantly darkened. Li Qingqian and the others tried their best to hold back their laughter. Qing Yaojin didn't care. He laughed and said, "That's right, it's my son." Li Xiaogong nodded. "Not bad. You old brat, you finally have a successor." After Li Xiaogong personally inspected the stalls, the people from the Imperial College in Hongwen-Guan came running back. They originally thought that these stubborn people would suddenly go crazy and ask them to help hunt. They thought that their future was hopeless. However, they didn't know why this group of people went crazy and actually went to hunt. Moreover, they were the kind that didn't care about their lives. This couldn't help but arouse everyone's passion. However, they were still a step too late. Looking at the pheasants, frogs, mice and other animals in their hands, and then looking at the other people's prey, was there even a need to compete? Moreover, it was the minister of the Ministry of Personnel, the current imperial prince, who had personally come to inspect. Li Xiaogong also suddenly became interested. He stood up and walked slowly with Qing Yaojin and Zhang Feng while admiring the items in everyone's hands. He was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. However, after the results of Chang and University and Secretary Bailu were inspected, Li Xiaogong looked at the prey of the students from the Imperial College in Hongwen-Guan who had been standing there for a long time. However, in an instant, Li Xiaogong angrily flung his sleeves and left. Chapter 999. Early the next morning, Zhang Feng was woken up by the earth-shattering sounds of training. He quickly put on his clothes and went to the entrance of the tent. He saw Cheng Chumo standing outside Zhang Feng's tent, holding a bamboo pole like a javelin. Zhang Feng's eyelids twitched. "When did you come?" "Reporting to the dean. Last night when we were returning to defend. ***CKU. Don't you know that the dean's wife is also inside? Get out of my way, you brat." Zhang Feng was furious. Originally he thought that this brat was tactful. However, at this moment when he thought of how the dream of the Red Chamber, that he talked about with Jing Shu and Zhang Yuyao last night might have been leaked, he couldn't help but feel angry. This was still a small matter. What Zhang Feng hated the most was eavesdropping. Cheng Chumo instantly deflated. "Don't get angry. When I arrived it was already the latter half of the night. Other than your snoring there was no other business. Furthermore, I was only 10 steps away from your living quarters. I couldn't hear anything." Zhao Yu's face turned into a mischievous grin as he spoke. "You didn't hear anything? How did you know that Lao Tzu snored?" Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. However, he also knew that this was an unusual time. Old Qin arranged for him to come was nothing more than to ensure his safety. Zhang Feng was really touched. Have you eaten? Cheng Chimo shook his head and rubbed his stomach. I had nothing to do last night, so I secretly roasted 3 pheasants. Now that you didn't mention it, I'm really hungry. What are we eating today? At the mention of food, Cheng Chimo's eyes instantly turned into crescents. He hooked his arm around Zhang Feng's shoulder and refused to let go. Zhang Feng frowned slightly. We're outside. You better know your limits. When Cheng Chimo heard this, he immediately gave a military salute that Zhang Feng had instructed them to do before. Yes, sir. Zhang Feng shook his head speechlessly. He placed the right hand that was raised above his head between his eyebrows and said, Let's go. Yes. The loud roar gave Zhang Feng a big fright. Lower your voice. Zhang Feng stomped his feet. Don't scream like a ghost every day. It hurts my eardrums. Yes. This time, Cheng Chimo's voice was much softer. This idiot. In the end, Chen Tiniu still hasn't seen much of the world. Zhang Feng sighed in his heart. Chen Tiniu had met the right person to meet him. This brother's perspective was too big. Previously, this guy was a little stubborn with a mouth full of nonsense, but now? Zhang Feng was planning to bring him step by step to the upper class. For example, a big shot like Li Xiaogong. In the distance, Li Xiaogong, Qing Yaojin, and everyone else who was still half asleep were staring at the students of White Deer College and Chang and University who were doing their morning exercises. There was a lot of discussion. There were even people who were pointing at them and commenting. Li Qingqian naturally became the leader of these people. He stuck his butt out, shouted loud slogans, and put in his best performance. At this time, his forehead was already dripping with sweat. Zhang Feng's arrival made Li Xiaogong very happy. He laughed and said, President Zhang, you're really a talent who can surprise me all the time. Zhang Feng didn't dare to say that. He waved his hand and said, You're too kind. This is what a student should do. These things are insignificant. Flattery wasn't something that could be worn all the time. For example, at this time, the 3 old guys from the Ministry of Works and Rights, as well as the 2 old guys from the Imperial College in Hongwen-Guan, looked at Zhang Feng's eyes as if they wanted to poke Zhang Feng out. Zhang Feng pretended not to see the 5 people's gazes. He smiled and said, I'm sorry to disturb Lord Li. These students of mine can't sleep in the morning, so I thought about it and evolved a simple exercise method from the 5 animal frolics. On the one hand, when they wake up in the morning, they can relax their muscles and improve their memory. After the strenuous exercise, they can eat. It's good for the healthy development of the body. Li Xiaogong stroked his beard and said with a smile, Is this some medicine from your academy? Yes. This is it. I didn't expect Lord Li to know this. It's really an honor. Li Xiaogong glared at Zhang Feng. Don't flatter me. You'd better explain it to the old man later. Otherwise, getting a flogging is a light punishment. Disqualifying you from this hunt is also a light punishment. Zhang Feng was like a monk. He was a little confused. What the hell was going on? Wasn't everything fine just now? What was wrong with him this time? However, at this time, Li Xiaogong didn't pay attention to Zhang Feng. Instead, he shook his head and stared at Li Qingqian and the others doing 5 rounds of morning exercises. Then he said with some dissatisfaction, Lord Qian, Lord He. Hearing this, the 2 old men from the Ministry of Personnel Affairs and the Ministry of Works hurried forward and bowed beside Li Xiaogong. Li Xiaogong pointed at the field and asked with a smile, Is there still a need to compete? The 2 couldn't help but feel awkward. Sir, this is the rule set by His Majesty. Although the overall performance of the students from White Deer College and Chang and University is very good, we still think that we should do things according to the rules. Li Xiaogong looked at the 2 meaningfully, then nodded and said, Since that's the case, this official announces that the debate that was supposed to last 3 days will be changed to 1 day. Today's debate is both the beginning and the end. Everyone will proceed with the debate under this official's witness. What do the 3 of you think? Do I, Li Xiaogong, have the right to do so? When the 3 people from Hongwen-Guan Imperial College and Ministry of Rights heard this, the corners of their mouths twitched. Was there a need to ask? Was there a need to ask? If you stomp your foot, we'll tremble. You're asking us now? Wasn't this a joke? The few of them smiled and pretended to look relieved as they said, We'll listen to Lord Li's orders. Chapter 1000. Upon hearing this, Li Xiaogong gestured with his right hand and said indifferently, Since it's the mid-autumn hunt and we are all scholars, why don't we have a debate? Debate? They couldn't help but ask in their hearts. The dean of the Imperial College, Lu Hongwen, and the dean of the Hongwen-Guan, Ouyang Kai, were a little confused at this moment. Needless to say, the 3 elders didn't dare to say anything. After all, they were nothing in front of Li Xiaogong. Zhang Feng was also interested. Seeing that they were a little timid and didn't dare to say anything, he asked, "Sir, how are we going to debate and what are we going to debate?" Li Xiaogong pointed to the students below the field and said, "According to the rules, the most important part of the mid-autumn hunt, other than the hunt, is the debate competition." As he spoke, Li Xiaogong looked around with a faint smile and said loudly, "Thanks to Prince Zhang, the previous autumn hunt prioritized the students. However, when I just arrived, I actually saw Prince Zhang setting an example and personally participating in the hunt. Since that's the case, all the deans who come must also participate in all the hunting activities in the future. I'm ashamed to say that Old Man and the others have been focusing on the students but forgot to set an example. Don't worry, the Old Man will definitely report to the Emperor about your contribution." Haha. It's not worth mentioning. This is just a small matter, really not worth mentioning. Zhang Feng chuckled and waved his hand. What the hell is this old guy doing? Although Zhang Feng was smiling, he couldn't help but criticize in his heart. After hearing these words, it seemed to be announcing the official start of the debate. These students were all extremely intelligent people. At this moment, when they saw that the atmosphere on the stage was filled with the smell of gunpowder, they had already hurriedly found an opponent and went forward to start the debate in an orderly manner. They were afraid. They were afraid of being implicated. That would be terrible. In the field, the three people from the Ministry of Personnel, Ministry of Rights, and Ministry of Works looked at Li Xiaogong in shock. They didn't know what he was trying to do. Qing Yaojin was also a little stunned. However, he seemed to have understood something. He crossed his arms and watched the show. As for Jing Shu and Zhang Yuyao, the two girls originally wanted to take a look at the top talents of the world. However, as they listened, their attention was drawn to Zhang Feng. They couldn't help but open their eyes wide in curiosity and stare at the few people without blinking. Zhang Feng smiled and made a gesture of invitation. "I hope Lord Li can tell me what to do. I've long heard that Prince Zhang is a master of poetry and poetry. I've also heard rumors from Lao Li and others that Prince Zhang once recited 100 poems in a night. However, I've never seen it before. Everyone here, except for Lao He, basically has dabbled in poetry. Naturally, you know that the fastest time a poem takes to be completed is more than a month. However, you said that he recited 100 poems in a night. That's why the old man wants to see Prince Zhang's talent in poetry." Hearing this, Lu Hongwen and the others couldn't help but gather with the people from the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rights. They whispered softly for a while. Then, Lord He from the Ministry of Works asked, "May I ask Lord Li, is this debate related to poetry? However, you also know that Prince Zhang has a reputation in poetry. Isn't this a little inappropriate?" Zhang Feng's reputation was out there. At this time, if Li Xiaogong arranged it this way, it would definitely be inappropriate. That was definitely not appropriate. This was simply prepared for Zhang Feng. However, the few of them thought about it again and figured out something different. Although Zhang Feng's poems were very popular, no one had really seen them or heard of those 100 poems. They had only heard bits and pieces of Zhang Feng's poems. Although everyone wanted to see it for themselves, what was this? This was the Mid-Autumn Hunt. Moreover, it was hosted by the Minister of Personnel, Li Xiaogong. What did this mean? The people were not fools. They definitely knew that this was obviously biased towards Zhang Feng. Therefore, at this time they wanted to prevaricate. For example, at this time, Sun Hongwen hurriedly came forward and said, replying to Lord Li, "This debate will be about Confucius and Mencius, the 4 books and 5 classics, as well as other miscellaneous studies. This is a test of the foundation of an academy. Since Lord Li said that we should have a debate with a dean, why should we waste time on poetry? Poetry is something that everyone has. It is difficult to reflect a person's talent from this alone, let alone the talent of a dean of an academy. Therefore, this humble official has a presumptuous request." Before Sun Hongwen finished speaking, Li Xiaogong glanced at him and said lightly, "Before I came here, I was secretly ordered by His Majesty. Do you think that His Majesty said something wrong? If so, I will prepare a fast horse for you. You can go back to the capital immediately and refute this in front of His Majesty." This official has nothing to say. Sun Hongwen instantly did not know what to say. His face suddenly changed. At this time, if he went to the palace to ask His Majesty, not to mention the time it would take to go back and forth, who would dare to go against His Majesty's order? Who could stand this? The emperor wanted to see Zhang Feng's poetry attainments. Who were they? However, Li Xiaogong had also considered some problems. He smiled and waved his hand. Since Principal Sun has said so, and this official has also considered this matter, then how about we use the appraisal of poems as a gimmick? Wouldn't that be fair? Moreover, you should have been immersed in this for more than 30 years. Are you afraid of a young boy in his early 20s? Old man does not believe that this boy can recite poetry in 7 steps like Chao Ji. Chapter 1001. Li Shaogong was right. Even if he started learning poetry when he was in his mother's womb, he only had 20 years. Throwing out the first 3 years and removing the 3 years of literacy, he only had 14 years. What could he do in these 14 years? How many books could he read? How many ancient books could he read? As for the rumor that he could compose 100 poems in one night, it seemed that the emperor didn't believe it and wanted to expose this person's conspiracy. So, after all, those poems were just rumors. No one knew if this kid had actually created them in a single night. Everyone thought about it and they couldn't help but feel a little excited. Lord He from the Ministry of Works gathered his courage and stepped forward. He cupped his fist and bowed. Since Lord Li has said so, we can only respect him. But for the sake of fairness, old man thinks that the quality of the poems should be the most important. What do you think? Zhang Feng smiled. He didn't know what Li Shaogong was up to, but after listening to Zhang Feng, he realized something. Lao Li's means were really something. Not only did he call the 4 great scholars brothers, but he could also invite the Duke of the Imperial Court. He was also the second person in the Lingyan Pavilion. At this time he heard Li Shaogong say that the emperor sent him here because of this. What kind of means did Lao Li have? Could it be that the poem he recited after that night of drunkenness had reached the emperor's hands? The more Zhang Feng thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. Otherwise, why were there only a few scattered poems in the market? There were no more than 10 poems in total. This was really inexplicable. If it was an ordinary businessman, this kind of thing would bring glory to the family no matter how much they treasured it. Even if they wanted to hide it, it couldn't be hidden. However, Lao Li actually kept it a secret. Moreover, it seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. After thinking about it, Zhang Feng was surprised to find that he didn't know which street or market Lao Li lived in Chang'an City. Just as Zhang Feng's imagination was running wild. Everyone had finalized this matter. Li Shaogong held his stomach and looked at Zhang Feng meaningfully. He asked, "President Zhang, what do you think of this arrangement?" Zhang Feng was a little speechless, but he also knew that this was helping him. He hurriedly smiled and said, "Just listen to Lord Li. I will definitely obey." "That's good. In that case, come." Li Shaogong waved his hand faintly. In an instant, several servants hurried forward and knelt in front of Li Shaogong. Li Shaogong ordered faintly, "Prepare the banquet and music." After that, Li Shaogong took the lead and went in another direction. Qing Yaojin looked at Zhang Feng and winked. His meaning was self-evident. Zhang Feng couldn't help but laugh in surprise. He simply followed Qing Yaojin and the 2 women behind Li Shaogong and said something to the 2 women. Jing Shu also took the opportunity to tell them some things to pay attention to at the banquet. After all, she didn't know if Zhang Feng had attended a banquet of this level before. Presumably, he had never seen such a scene before. This level of wine was very particular. All aspects of etiquette had to be paid attention to. Otherwise, they would be asked to leave the banquet on the spot. If it was serious, they would lose their heads. Lu Hongwen, Ouyang Kai, and the 5 old men from the Ministry of Rights and the Ministry of Personnel were busy at this time. After hurriedly giving instructions, they followed behind these people while muttering. From time to time, 1 or 2 quarrels could be heard. However, although Li Shaogong and Zhang Feng could hear it, they didn't take it to heart. After all, they didn't deserve it. The banquet was set up by a river in Erpi Gully. Although this river wasn't very wide, one could see the soft sand in the river at a glance. In the calm and clear water, one could see fish swimming happily in the water from afar. Zhang Feng estimated that the deepest part of this river was only around the calf. In this river there were already 7 tables set up at this time. 2 of them were on the beach at the top. Obviously these were the seats of Li Shaogong and Qing Yaojin. Below these 2 tables were 3 more tables. Obviously these were the seats of Zhang Feng, Lu Hongwen and Ouyang Kai. Downstream, 3 tables were arranged side by side. Needless to say, these were the seats of the officials of the 3 ministries. At this time, there were all kinds of seasonal fruits and wine placed on the tables. The slightly turbid grape wine in the cup faintly emitted a trace of demonic light. Although it was autumn, the maple leaves swayed in the wind and spun, leisurely falling on the surface of the river and the tables. This scene was somewhat poetic. There was a trickle of water below and maple leaves above. It looked somewhat elegant. Zhang Feng didn't expect that Li Shaogong, who was born in the martial arts world, could be so elegant after he got off the horse and pacified the world. A group of singers were playing something on the shore. Zhang Feng's sharp senses even discovered that in front of this group of singers, There was also a table on a carpet on the beach. However, at this time, there was an incense burner and a guzheng on the table. Two female servant girls, holding an incense burner and a round fan, stood charmingly next to the table. It was unknown who they were waiting for to arrive. Zhang Feng took a deep look at Jing Shu. After seeing that there was nothing wrong with her, he went to the beach with the others. It was rare for Zhang Feng to have some interest. He simply took off his shoes and socks and just like that walked barefoot into the river. At this time it was noon. The sunlight seemed to warm the river. Stepping into it, Zhang Feng couldn't help but moan. So comfortable. Chapter 1002. They were all people with self-restraint. After glancing at Zhang Feng, they withdrew their gazes again. It was the first time that a banquet was held in the river. If it were any other time they would really want to take off their shoes and socks like Zhang Feng. It would be comfortable but they didn't dare to do so. They wanted to save face. When Li Xiaogong saw that they were seated, he looked at Jingshu who was beside Zhang Feng and nodded slightly. I've long heard that Miss Jingshu's zither skills are extraordinary. Would you do me the honor of joining us today? After all, Jingshu was a woman who had seen grand occasions. She stood up and bowed slightly to Li Xiaogong. She said that she was flattered and then remained silent. When Zhang Feng saw this, he touched Jingshu's small hand slightly. Jingshu nodded and walked in the direction of the zither. This scene made Li Xiaogong and Qing Yaojin look at each other and then laugh. Jingshu pretended not to hear them and walked straight to the zither. The two maids beside the zither saw Jingshu take her seat and gently waved their round fans. They looked so beautiful and set off Jingshu's otherworldly aura. After the zither sounded, Li Xiaogong looked at everyone indifferently. In that case, let's start today. Prince Zhang. After Li Xiaogong sat down, he raised his cup. Zhang Feng thought that Li Xiaogong wanted to drink with him. He hurriedly raised his cup, only to find that Li Xiaogong had already put the cup on the table and seemed to be resting with his eyes closed. Zhang Feng was slightly stunned. He saw that the two people opposite him, as well as the three people from the Ministry of Works and Rights, were covering their mouths and snickering. Qing Yaojin coughed and made a gesture of reciting a poem. Zhang Feng was speechless. Damn it. Let Lao Tzu compose a poem. You're a man with a military background. Why are you pretending to be noble and virtuous here? Seeing this, Zhang Feng was slightly unhappy. He lazily clasped his hands to Li Xiaogong. In reply to Lord Li, I only know some sour sentences. How dare I embarrass myself in front of Lord Li and the two presidents? As soon as these words came out, several people instantly looked at Li Xiaogong. Only then did they understand that they wanted to give this guy a chance to stand out. Did they want to use their hands to help Zhang Feng? Did they want to use their hands to prove Zhang Feng's reputation? They were not fools. Of course, they knew that on the 15th of August, on the night of the Mid-Autumn Festival, Zhang Feng would become a great Confucian scholar at the Mid-Autumn Festival Poetry Meet. This poetry meet was organized by the four great Confucian scholars for Zhang Feng. If this guy could become famous at the poetry meet, his reputation as a great Confucian would be confirmed. This was something that no one wanted to see. Once Zhang Feng became a great Confucian scholar, the Imperial College in Hongwenguan would have nothing to do with the four great academies in Chang'an City. After all, at this time, White Deer College already had the four great Confucian scholars. Although they were just sitting there, it was already a golden signboard. During this period, White Deer College did not charge tuition. It attracted poor students who lined up from Chang'an City to the foot of the barren mountain every day. If this, Lu Hongwen and Ouyang Kai did not even dare to think about it. If this went on, even if the Imperial College in Hongwenguan invited more great Confucian scholars to sit there, they would not be able to compete with White Deer College and Chang'an University. If this was just a landing, whether Zhang Feng was a great Confucian scholar or not, today's deeds would be spread out. The titles of the chairman of the two great academies and the youngest intuition in the Tang Dynasty would be thrown everywhere. By then, the two great academies in Chang'an City would have no chance to stand out. After all, Zhang Feng's name was famous in China during this period. It even caused a series of incidents in the Turks, Tubo, and other countries. This guy's poem, Bringing in the Wine, was famous in Chang'an City for a period of time. At least for more than a month, this poem was praised in the streets and alleys. It was even regarded as a work of God. However, this guy rarely wrote poems and came up with other new tricks which gradually faded away. However, as long as someone mentioned it, they would instantly think of this poem and Zhang Feng. At this time, how could the three people from the Ministry of Works and Rights not see that Li Xiaogong was biased towards Zhang Feng? Although they wanted to stop it, after all, if Zhang Feng's reputation was affected, their families would be at a disadvantage. When the higher-ups blamed them, it would be really difficult for them to explain. However, Li Xiaogong was after all a relative of the emperor. They could only sit and do nothing. Now the two deans, Lu Hongwen and Ouyang Kai, were having a headache. They could only pretend that they did not know anything, drinking alone and eating the delicious food on the table. In fact, Zhang Feng was just guessing. After all, the experience of his previous life was not enough for him to deal with everything. Moreover, he could not remember clearly what happened in the past. The history in his memory was just something that was passed down orally. Could even be tampered with. He really did not know what really happened in the Tang Dynasty. At this time, Zhang Feng also faintly felt that some of the current emperors had ulterior motives. Li Shimin was born in the military. Although he could summon the wind and summon the rain in the imperial court, there were still many people who opposed him. They said that he was just an emperor on horseback and so on. In particular, the Confucian scholars and the nobles in Shandong were the most arrogant. However, although Li Shimin wanted to touch the nobles in Shandong, he did not have the confidence to do so. It was only because the nobles in Shandong were known as the descendants of Confucius and were the gathering place of the world's civilization. In addition, the 5 surnames and 7 Wangs as well as Guanlong and other aristocratic families had already taken away the imperial power before the Tang Dynasty. Although he wanted to, he was powerless to deal with it. The appearance of Zhang Feng and the White Deer College seemed to give the emperor, who had never met him, a glimmer of hope. He wanted to let Zhang Feng replace the Imperial College and Hongwen Guan, the 2 aristocratic families, to enter the imperial court. Zhang Feng could not help but feel that this was the emperor's purpose in sending Li Xiaogong here. Zhang Feng was far away, but he could still see clearly that Li Xiaogong's eyes had slowly narrowed. There was a trace of appreciation in his deep eyes. Of course, he was appreciating that Zhang Feng could understand his meaning. Zhang Feng naturally understood Li Xiaogong's meaning, but he also meant to warn him that if he did something good, there would be unexpected results even when he entered the imperial court, let alone here. Seeing that Zhang Feng seemed to have understood his meaning, Li Xiaogong smiled and said, "Why don't you recite a poem and let the 2 libationers judge it? If it doesn't work, they can punish it with wine. What do you think?" What else could he do? Zhang Feng slowly sat back on the chair. He smiled and nodded, "Okay." Chapter 1003. Today Zhang Feng's mental state was very poor. The 2 women did not know where they heard that after drinking he would talk a lot and would answer any question you asked. Last night, the 2 women pestered Zhang Feng to talk about the Red Chamber, but Zhang Feng was really unwilling to talk about it. After all, that thing consumed too much energy and now he had something important to do. The 2 women were also clever and directly got Zhang Feng drunk. It was unknown which big mouth told the 2 women this trick. After getting drunk, Zhang Feng's poetic way of passing the time in one breath, he talked from Sushir to dawn. If it were not for the severe headache and swelling in his head, coupled with the fact that he really could not hold in his urine, Zhang Feng might still be lying on the bed at this time. Until now, Zhang Feng's head was still somewhat groggy. At this time, the warm water from the soles of his feet washed the soft sand, flowing between the soles of his feet. A burst of comfortable and numb feeling made Zhang Feng somewhat drowsy. In order to not be sleepy here, Zhang Yuyao reluctantly picked up the wine that Zhang Yuyao poured for him, and drank it to the brim. He smacked his lips and frowned. Lu Hongwen, Ouyang Kai, and the others all knew some of Zhang Feng's methods. At this time they were all looking at Zhang Feng, frowning and silently calculating for him. About the time it took to brew a cup of tea. The originally abnormally sleepy Zhang Feng simply laid his whole body in the river, allowing the river water to flow between his cheeks and hair. He even faintly felt a few small fish slap his cheeks a few times. After a little sober, Zhang Feng sat up and stretched out his hand. Zhang Yuyao was very sensitive to this kind of thing. Changing to a large bowl, he filled it to the brim with wine for Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng frowned slightly but still raised his head and drank the entire bowl. Closing his eyes for a moment, he opened his lips slightly and sang with his eyes slightly narrowed, "Wine and song, life is short like the morning dew, the passing days are bitter, my heart is for you, I sing until now I have a guest, the drum and the flute, the moon is clear, when will it retreat, the banquet is full of perseverance, the heart is full of gratitude, the moon and the stars are sparse, the crow flies south, circling the tree 3 times, which branch can lean against the mountain, not tired of the high sea, not tired of the deep sea, the Duke of Zhou's nourishment, the whole world is in my heart." Just like how Zhang Feng pretended to be pretentious with the poem, the moment the poem came out, even the musician who was playing the music stopped playing. As for Jingshu, she was playing the guzheng passionately along with the poem. The poetic quality of the poem, coupled with the zither music, caused the artistic conception of the poem to explode to the extreme. Li Xiaogong couldn't help but be slightly stunned. This poem was Cao Cao's masterpiece when he was at his peak. Zhang Feng slightly edited a few lines and added some things himself. Cao Cao existed in this world. Zhang Feng had seen him in the ancient books of White Deer College, but there weren't many of Cao Cao's poems that had been passed down. For example, the poem that Zhang Feng sang just now was one of those poems that had never appeared. Zhang Feng's action could be considered to have filled the gap in this world. In order to respond to the current situation where the whole world was united, and even more so for Li Xiaogong to bring this poem to the emperor. The most wonderful thing was that the line in the poem, "The Duke of Zhou spat out some negative points," actually existed in this world. Moreover, this Duke of Zhou wasn't a disciple of the emperor, but a real emperor. Therefore, Zhang Feng dared to recite it in a dignified manner. After a long time, other than the beautiful river water, the chirping of insects and birds, and the sound of falling maple leaves, there was only the sound of Jingshu's guzheng. Good poem. It's really a peerless poem in the world. Li Xiaogong exclaimed and raised his cup. Prince Zhang really lives up to his reputation. He can actually recite such a peerless masterpiece so casually. He's really a role model for our generation to learn from. After that, Li Xiaogong drank a cup of wine. Qing Yaojin also hurriedly echoed, "Although I'm a boor and don't know any bullshit poems, this poem makes me feel good." Good poem. It's definitely a good poem. Lu Hongwen and Ouyang Kai from the Imperial College opposite them remained unchanged. After all, they were also people who had experienced great storms and had read countless poems. Basically, every day they would encounter poems passed to them by students or addresses. The reason why they could stand out from many people and sit in the important positions of the Imperial College and the Chancellor of Hongwen Guan, which were selected by the country for talents, was partly because they were born in the gentry family, and more importantly because of their talent and learning. Lu Hongwen sighed softly and said, "Good poem. It's really a good poem that doesn't appear in the world." While speaking, he picked up a few pieces of vegetables from the plate with chopsticks and put them into his mouth while drinking wine. He said, "However, although the artistic conception of this poem is a little intermittent, the original meaning of the poem is only one. Although there are some interruptions, it doesn't hurt the general idea. The poem is the meaning. Quality is the most important. I didn't expect that Prince Zhang could recite such a good poem in such a short time at such a young age. It's really a blessing for the Tang Dynasty." Zhang Feng didn't understand the meaning of this person. He blinked and calmly said, "Thank you for letting me win." However, as expected, this old guy didn't have any good intentions. After this old guy drank a cup of wine, he got up drunkenly and clasped his hands to Li Xiaogong. Although Prince Zhang's poem is very good, and many famous people in the literary world can't even compose such a beautiful poem, this old man feels that if this matter is debated, this old man is a little unconvinced. If Prince Zhang can compose a poem based on our current situation, then we can be considered to be convinced. Ouyang Kai, Lord He, and Lord Qian heard this and nodded repeatedly to express their agreement. Li Xiaogong heard this and smiled slightly but didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at Zhang Feng and asked with a smile, "Prince Zhang, what do you think?" Chapter 1004. Zhang Feng didn't say anything. He only cupped his fist and made an inviting gesture. Although the crowd didn't understand what Zhang Feng's gesture meant, the general meaning was clear. "Since this lord wants to use the current scenery to make a poem, can you give me a hint? Otherwise this old man will accuse me of cheating again." "You impudent. How can you measure the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain? We are just speaking the truth and have no intention of targeting you. Could it be that Prince Zhang is angry out of humiliation?" Zhang Feng looked at the two of them with a fake smile and didn't say anything. Instead, he turned to look at Lord He and Lord Qian from the Ministry of Works and Rights and said, "If that's the case, why don't we ask Lord Qian, Lord He, and this lord to give me a hint based on the current situation? If I can make a poem of the same quality as the one you just made, what will you say? If I can't, what will you say?" This was simply the heavens helping me. When the three of them heard this, their eyes flashed with joy. "Since you want to die, then the old man and the other two will fulfill your wish." Lord He smiled and said, "What does Lord Li think?" The three of them were smart. They knew that Zhang Feng was digging a hole for them, so they threw the hole to Li Xiaogong. Li Xiaogong also didn't know what Zhang Feng was up to. He nodded calmly and said, "Just do as I say." Lord He and Lord Qian looked at each other and smiled. Lord He then looked around and said, "It's autumn now. there are maple leaves, flowing water, and the sound of zither. Why don't Prince Zhang recite a poem based on this beautiful scenery? If Prince Zhang can make a poem similar to the one just now, we are willing to respectfully address Prince Zhang as Sir. What do you think? If Prince Zhang can't do it, he just needs to drink a cup of wine. What do you think? Yes. Zhang Feng nodded faintly. His eyes swept across the faces of these people one by one. He could not help but sneer in his heart. If it was an ordinary person, they would have some stage fright at this time, but was Zhang Feng an ordinary person? As a young man of the 21st century, he was also a top liberal arts student. Poems and songs could be recited at the drop of a hat. Zhang Feng thought for a while and finally decided to use the poem by the poet sage Du Fu, Qiu Xing 8 Poems 1. On the one hand, Shaolin's wild elder Du Fu's reputation was there for all to see. Moreover, this poem was more appropriate for the current situation. Zhang Feng brewed his wine for a while. With one hand holding the wine pot, he faced upwards and let the breeze caress his cheeks. After a while, Zhang Feng slowly recited, "Dew withers and injures the maple forest. Clouds and rosy clouds disappear. The waves in the river surge to the sky. Plugged in the wind and clouds, the earth is e'en. From chrysanthemums, tears are shed. A lonely boat connects to the heart of the hometown. Cold clothes are everywhere. Chang and city is anxious at dusk." The poet sage Du Fu was the poet that Zhang Feng admired the most. Who said that? Li Bai seemed to be more famous. However, regarding the understanding of events, everyone had their own preferences. Zhang Feng was biased towards the poet sage Du Fu. It was not because of anything else but because he liked it. At this time, after Zhang Feng's poem, the entire scene fell into a short silence. It was indeed silent. This was the effect that Zhang Feng wanted. The previous poem was pieced together by himself. Then what about this poem? If you dare to tell Lao Tzu that this poem was pieced together by others, Lao Tzu would really fight you with a knife. No, I'll fight you with a Mitsubishi Army knife. If you really can't do it, find me a F*King poem that is the same as this one. Moreover, this poem was suitable for Zhang Feng at this time. Zhang Feng did not like this kind of scheming. Ever since they came to Erpi Ridge, Zhang Feng had his own difficulties even though he brought the two girls to tour the mountains and rivers every day. Being a stranger in a foreign land was the most appropriate way to describe Zhang Feng at this time. The annual Mid-Autumn Festival was coming soon. However, this year, Zhang Feng had to spend his time in the Tang Dynasty of this parallel world. Although he was doing well at this time, he was after all a 20-year-old soul. Just like the meaning of the last sentence in the poem, it was time to add winter clothes. In Chang'an City, the topic of winter clothes could be seen everywhere. Gradually, the topic of winter clothes was on everyone's lips. What about Zhang Feng? His favorite clothes, mobile phone, computer, and so on had all disappeared. Instead, he was tossing and turning in this world. Even though he was wearing gorgeous clothes, he still felt a little cold, unable to make him feel a little warm. Even though he had two beautiful women by his side, including Yu Yuer, who was comparable to the top beauty of the later generations, he still couldn't let go of the future. Yes, at this moment, Zhang Feng was homesick, very, very homesick. At this moment, the ones who were the most shocked were the few people present. This poem was really too wonderful. Everyone had a different understanding of it. Therefore, at this time, everyone was silent. Even Jingshu stopped playing the guzheng at this time. She lowered her head with tears in her eyes, and her shoulders were trembling slightly. Zhang Feng put his hands behind his back. His cheeks were red. Standing in the water, he stared at the two people from the Imperial College and the Hongwen Guan. He did not have any special feelings for the two of them. He just did not like their behavior. Even then, Lu Sun's expectations and optimism were still in the Shandong aristocratic family. Zhang Feng was no different from competing with them for something. Zhang Feng wanted very simple, that was, to live the life he wanted. Chapter 1005. But in reality, Zhang Feng didn't take the initiative to provoke these people, but these people wanted to compare themselves with Zhang Feng. At this moment, Qing Yaojin stared coldly at Lu Hongwen and Ouyang Kai and said, "Earlier, Old Man heard someone mention the mid-autumn hunt in Chang'an City. Originally, Old Man didn't want to get involved in this matter. After all, I believe that Zhang Feng can deal with this matter. However, Old Man really can't stand the way some people are doing things. This mid-autumn hunt is supposed to be passed on to the deans of the various academies 1 month before the start of the mid-autumn hunt. Why did it only reach Zhang Feng a few days before the start of the mid-autumn hunt? Do you think that Zhang Feng is easy to bully?" While speaking, Qing Yaojin's eyes flashed with a cold light as he stared at the three people from the Ministry of Works and Rights. The three of them suddenly trembled. Only then did they remember that this was Qing Yaojin, the great devil of chaos. If they provoked him and this person killed them here, they would die in vain. A thin layer of cold sweat involuntarily appeared on the faces of the 5 people. At this moment, Qing Yaojin's words were somewhat inappropriate, especially in such a delicate situation. It seemed abnormally unreasonable. This meant that the matter between Zhang Feng and the Imperial College's Hongwen Guan and the Ministry of Works and Rights was officially out in the open. Although everyone knew that there was a problem, there was still room for reconciliation if they didn't fall out. But now there was still no room for reconciliation. When Lord He of the Ministry of Works heard this, he looked slightly displeased. He looked at Qing Yaojin and said, "There are indeed some aspects of this matter that are lacking in consideration, but we are just following the rules. Logically speaking, Chang and University and White Deer College are not qualified to participate in this year's mid-autumn hunt. It's only because of Prince Zhang's previous actions of providing relief to the disaster victims that we decided to inform you at the last minute that Prince Zhang will participate in this year's mid-Prince Zhang. This is all recorded in the laws of the Tang Dynasty. If you feel that it's inappropriate, you can report us to Lord Li. But Lord Li, you should be clear about this matter." Lord Chen of the Ministry of Appointments secretly glanced at Li Xiaogong. When he saw that Li Xiaogong didn't say anything, he mustered up his courage and said, "That's right. Lord He is right about this matter. The laws of the Ministry of Appointments clearly state that academies that have been established for less than a year are not qualified to participate in the mid-autumn hunt. On one hand, it's because the academy has just been established and many things haven't been sorted out properly. As far as we know, White Deer College is still in the construction stage, so..." Zhang Feng's eyes were fixed on Lu Hongwen and Ouyang Kai. He saw some panic in their eyes, but Zhang Feng didn't understand what they were thinking. Lu Hongwen imitated Zhang Feng and opened the cork of the wine pot. He drank all the wine in the pot in one gulp. Then he stared at Zhang Feng with a red face and roared, "Why? Since the establishment of the Imperial College, we have relied on our true abilities and fought our way up bit by bit. Every year, our Imperial College has sent many talents to the Imperial Court and contributed so much to the rise of the Tang Dynasty. Who knows or cares about this? Why did you, Zhang Feng, receive His Majesty's favor and even receive His Majesty's Imperial Edict before your college was established? Was it only because of your 20,000 dan of grain and your poems? Although we don't have Prince Zhang's courage and wild ideas like Prince Zhang's, we have always adhered to the teachings of Confucius. We are cautious and conscientious. We don't dare to be careless. That's why we have what we have today. What about you, Zhang Feng?" Zhang Feng saw a trace of determination in the eyes of the Dean of the Imperial College. He also saw his determination to cut off all his escape routes. Zhang Feng suddenly felt a jolt in his heart. He felt some kind of danger that he hadn't been aware of before was slowly approaching him. He couldn't help but feel a little tipsy. He suddenly turned around and stood up. His eyes were searching for something in the bushes by the river. Sure enough, after a while, the bushes on the other side of the river swayed slightly. Zhang Feng also faintly saw a person flash by. Although Zhang Feng didn't see clearly who it was, who else could appear here other than Taiyuan Wang clan? Taiyuan Wang clan. The Guanlong group had been beaten up by him several times. They knew to tuck their tails between their legs and behave themselves. But what about Taiyuan Wang clan? I, Zhang Feng, only want to do my own thing peacefully. I don't want to be enemies with anyone. But you, Wang clan, have to be the first to stand out and compete with me. Since that's the case, I, Zhang Feng, have a grudge with you." The debate ended in a hurry. It ended in a hurry just like how it started in a hurry. It was mainly because of the appearance of this mysterious person that the conflict between Zhang Feng and Hongwen Guan Imperial College was temporarily put aside. The result was self-evident. Qing Yaojin's words, the Imperial College Hongwen Guan's words, and the sudden appearance of this person. This made Li Xiaogong extremely angry. The result was no longer important. What was important was that they had already shed all pretense of cordiality. Since they had shed all pretense of cordiality, they naturally had to find the real culprit behind the scenes. Although Hongwen Guan and Imperial College were basically controlled by those big families at this time, they were still important institutions of the country. So under normal circumstances they wouldn't touch them if they could. But the person who popped up was indeed a perfect scapegoat for these guys. With Li Xiaogong's and Qing Yaojin's tempers, how could they let him go? Chapter 1006. At this time, no one from the Ministry of Works and Rights, Imperial College and Hongwen Guan saw Qing Yaojin and Li Xiaogong leave angrily. Naturally, they also saw the person who just flashed and disappeared. They could not help but think quickly in their minds about who exactly appeared here at this time. At the same time, they secretly breathed a sigh of relief. The sudden appearance of this mysterious person was really timely. Otherwise, who knew what would happen at this time? Zhang Feng was too lazy to think so much. After all, they had already made arrangements before. Since these people dared to appear at this time, it proved that these people had already prepared for the worst. Zhang Feng did not care. After all, he had the Mitsubishi military knife in hand, and old Niu Zi who had been paying attention to these people's whereabouts. In the dark, he was not afraid of these people. Moreover, he was now an official of the imperial court. And Li Xiaogong, the great god, was by his side. Naturally, there would be a tall person to stand up for him. The debate ended abruptly. Qin Shimo and the others' debate was still going on. The debate was actually very simple. That was, if words did not work, they would use force. The so-called force was actually the rugby that Zhang Feng had prepared for a long time before. It was also an activity that the academy had reported in advance. As long as he could make the other party shut up and admit defeat, then as long as it was not that kind of underhanded method, it would basically be allowed. The rugby matter came too quickly. Therefore at this time, Zhang Feng had already changed the rugby to kuju. However, he had changed into a rugby iron protective suit. If you dare to touch it, come on, Lao Tzu will stand here and let you hit it. As long as you can break this armor, it's my loss. At this time, when Zhang Feng and the 5 people who had a lot on their minds returned to the camp, the kuju had already started. In the field, Li Qingqian and the others attracted a lot of attention. Their visual impact of the equipment, in addition to the previous warning from Qing Chimo and the others, these people were just going through the motions. After all, the expressions on their faces when they returned explained everything. The 3 people from the Ministry of Works and Rights, Lu Hongwen, and Ouyang Kai absent-mindedly stopped the competition. There was no way for the competition to continue. The score was simply unbearable to watch. It was as if this was a one-man show for Qing Chimo and the others. If this group of bastards continued to perform, the students from both families would probably all run away. What the 5 of them were most worried about was Zhang Feng's revenge, as well as the fact that the captured person might confess something or get caught. With Li Xiaogong's methods, it would be easy for them to get something out of that person's mouth. Therefore, at this moment, it would be best if they could end this as soon as possible and spread the news back. As for the result, it was no longer important. As long as they could maintain the position that the family had spent a lot of money to obtain, it would be fine. In less than 3 years, the 5 of them would be able to rise again. Kuju was basically not worth watching. Zhang Feng knew the result without even looking. However, Zhang Feng's novel method, coupled with the ability that Zhang Feng had displayed and Li Xiaogong's unyielding method, made the 5 of them restrain themselves a little. At the very least, when they looked at Zhang Feng, they were no longer so full of thorns. After all, they knew what they were doing. If they really angered Li Xiaogong, even if he killed them in court, their families wouldn't say a word for them. After all, they were only outer sect disciples. Kuju was not troublesome. After 2 days of competition, it was time to announce the results. After all, it would be strange if the people from White Deer College who were wearing protective equipment did not win the championship. Lord, he chuckled as he announced the perfect end of the mid-autumn hunt. White Deer College and Chang and University had won the championship. Lord, he waved his hand and said, "Next, let us admire the never-before-seen rugby that Lord Zhang reported to our department." This time, it was time for the one-man show between White Deer College and Chang and University. As soon as the rugby ball was played, it instantly caused a burst of exclamations. Even the Ministry of Works, the Ministry of Rights, and the 2 deans joined in the discussion. They wanted to get some training methods from Zhang Feng. After all, these things were important. Once they were realized, it would be beneficial to the reputation of the academy, the reputation of the 3 departments, and the promotion in the future. After completing the one-man show, Zhang Feng chuckled and cupped his fists at the 5 people. "Sirs, would the 2 deans do me the honor of visiting my Kuan Mountain? After all, Lantian County is not far from my White Deer College. It's only a day's journey." At this time, no one's mind was filled with the spectacular scene of the football game that Zhang Feng had arranged before. Seeing Zhang Feng's invitation, how could they have any reason to refuse? Even if Zhang Feng did not invite them, they would probably pester him to go up Shao Mountain to take a look. Most importantly, they wanted to see how Shao Mountain looked like. The name of the White Deer Institute had been spreading like wildfire in Chang and City for a month or so. Every commoner would often talk about the White Deer Institute. They were also very curious about the White Deer Institute. Previously, there had been some estrangement between the 2 of them, but now, Zhang Feng didn't seem to mind. Now that he had sent out another invitation, if they continued to go down, it might not be the scapegoat's turn to be unlucky, but they would be the first to suffer. Seeing that the matter was settled, Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, "Quickly return to the college and report this matter. I will accompany the 2 deans and the 3 sirs. I will be there soon." Hearing this, Qing Chumo did not dare to delay. He snatched a horse from Li Xiaogong's subordinate and ran away. He looked at Zhang Feng and his mouth twitched. "Damn it. You should have waited for us to leave before doing such a stupid thing." How could Lao Tzu show his face now? Chapter 1007. The next morning the sky was still dark. But at this moment the White Deer Academy was excessively quiet. The construction site that was originally under construction had stopped at an unknown time. Other than the cement kiln, lime kiln, brick kiln and tile kiln, which were still burning firewood and emitting thick smoke, there were only a few birds chirping in the air. They seemed to be imitating the White Deer College students who lined up in the air and played happily. Yu Shernan and the others stood at the entrance of White Deer College. No one knew how long they had been standing there. Behind them, more than 2,000 students of White Deer College stood upright. After a few days of preparation, White Deer College had basically swept through all the clothing stores and textile workshops in Chang'an. However, they could only roughly make these students wear clothes that looked similar. They were called school uniforms. White Deer College's school uniform was mainly sky blue. The upper body was white like the clouds in the sky. The lower body gradually turned sky blue. When it reached the hem of the robe, it turned dark blue. On the left chest area of the uniform, there was a fist-sized word, White Deer, embroidered with red thread. They were afraid that others would not see it. Behind everyone's backs, there was an ink landscape bamboo painting that gradually turned blue with a background of gradually changing colors. Some of these drawings were embroidered with needle and thread. However, due to time constraints, most of them were hastily drawn with brush and ink. Some of the students even had the words White Deer written on their chests with a brush. There were not many rusted clothes, only about 100 of them. Most of them were given to the top students by Yu Shernan and the others. The white and blue colors were not the same. At a glance they were basically the same. However, if one looked closely one could still see some differences. However, Yu Shernan and the others placed the 100 or so people in formal uniforms at the front. Using visual errors, most people would not be able to see the difference between the beige and gray uniforms and the pure white uniforms in the front row. Even though the uniforms were made in a hurry, the students were still abnormally excited. After all, what did the uniform and the words White Deer mean? It was a symbol of status. It symbolized that they were officially accepted by the college and became a part of the college. This was something that other colleges could not compare to. If they went out wearing this uniform, they would not need to spend any money to eat and stay in Chang'an City. They knew that White Deer College had properties in Chang'an City as well as various benefits. At this moment at the mountain gate, Ouyang Sun frowned slightly as he looked down the mountain. Then he looked at the students behind him and asked, "Bo Shi, why don't we let the students run first? Or do exercises early? It's early. If Feng and the others could come back, the news." Ouyang Sun was a very rule-abiding person. This time it was the time for morning exercises. Yu Shernan looked at the excited students behind him and frowned slightly. He waved at Qing Chumo and said, "Did you ask when they will arrive?" Qing Chumo was a little uncertain. After hesitating for a moment he said, "Probably soon. Why don't I send someone down?" "Forget it, I'll go down and take a look myself." "Okay." Yu Shernan nodded. Qin Chumo heard this. He hurriedly rode down the mountain. After Chumo left, Yu Shernan waved his hand and said, "Qian Wanli." Qian Wanli, who was standing in front of the crowd, stood straight. Hearing this he took 3 big steps forward and shouted, "Here." Yu Shernan nodded with satisfaction and waved at him. "The morning exercises can begin." "Yes." Qian Wanli saluted and then turned 360 degrees. He shouted at the students, "Look forward. Be at ease. Attention. The 8th set of radio gymnastics starts now." In the market at the foot of the mountain. The market was very lively at this time. It was not because the morning market had started. The people here were not so diligent. After all, there was no business at this time. It took at least 2 hours to come to Shao Mountain from Chang'an City. Who would come here to buy things so early? The crowd only heard that Zhang Feng was going to bring the officials of the Ministry of Works and Rights to visit the academy, as well as the famous Imperial College and Hongwen Guan academies in Chang'an City. They were all going to visit White Deer College. Everyone was happy. After all, this was Zhang Feng's academy. It was a place that could compete with the Imperial College. Most of the people here had made a fortune by relying on Zhang Feng. At this time they also thought that they were part of the academy. To them this was something worth bragging about for the rest of their lives. If it weren't for the White Deer Institute's benevolence, most of the people here would have already starved to death. When they needed people on the mountain they would come here to work and survive. After they were done, Zhang Feng actually gave them a batch of money according to their wishes. He even gave them a piece of land at the foot of the mountain for them to make a living. Moreover, there were no taxes here. One only needed to donate some money to the academy every year. Principal Zhang even said that it depended on the individual's situation. 1 copper coin was fine, and he wouldn't mind even if it was 10,000 string of coins. How could there be such a good person in the world? Boom, boom, boom. While everyone was looking forward to it, a series of rumbling sounds came from afar. Hearing the sounds, the old village chief, who was dressed like the students of White Deer College, walked to the water path that the crowd made way for. He asked, "Quick look, is Fengzi and the others back?" "They're back. The dean is back. There are so many people with him." Hearing this, the old village chief was very excited. He hurriedly called out with his crutch, "What are you waiting for? Quick, light the firecrackers. Quick, quick, quick." Chapter 1008. Crackle, crackle. With the deafening sound of the firecrackers, everyone on the mountain and at the foot of the mountain looked at the foot of the mountain at the same time. Even in Chang'an City, Yu Qigong and the others in the Chang and military camp could hear the sound of the firecrackers. "Quick, the dean is back. Do you remember how he taught you to stand in line?" Yu Shernan waved his hand when he heard the firecrackers at the foot of the mountain. Yes. More than 2,000 students who had just finished their morning exercises shouted in unison. If someone did not know, they would think that this was not the academy, but the military camp at the foot of the mountain. No, they were standing even more upright than the ones in the military camp. Chen Wanli was very excited. At this time, Chen Tiniu and the others were not on the mountain, so this difficult task fell on him. For example, he was responsible for the daily running exercises and so on. Now that he heard that the dean was coming back and that he was coming back with the people from the Ministry of Works and Rights, what was this? This was the time to bring honor to the academy, and the 2,000 students that he was leading were the foundation of the academy. If something were to happen here, then even if he, Chen Wanli, was chopped into pieces, he would not be able to make up for the loss. "They're here. Mr. Bosher, they're all here." Hearing this, Yu Shernan and the others subconsciously tidied up their wrinkled clothes, and even took out a peachwood comb and a bronze mirror to tidy up their appearance. After tidying up, Yu Shernan and the others pondered for a while. At this time, it was not appropriate for them to wait at the mountain gate. After all, they were great Confucians, and those people, although having official titles, had to salute them when they saw them. At this time, that's not right. Yu Shernan punched his palm with his right fist, looked behind him, and then looked at the foot of the mountain and said, "Chen Wanli, tell everyone to go to the school field and wait. Is everything ready?" "Mr. Bosher, everything is ready. Just wait for the dean to come back." "Good. Go." Hearing this, Chen Wanli performed a modern standard military salute. Then, using the hand signals of the traffic police, he directed the groups of students to follow him in an orderly manner. They jogged all the way to the field. The playground was naturally the huge basketball court between the teaching building and the dormitory area of the academy. That place was too big. It didn't feel crowded at all, even though there were more than 2,000 people standing there. Below the teaching building of White Deer College, 3 statues were being dealt with. In the middle was a statue of Confucius, and on both sides were statues of Mencius and Lao Tzu. In the middle of the square, there was an open book carved with the disciple rules engraved on it. On the side of the stone carving was the handwriting of the 4 deans of White Deer College. It was called meticulous calligraphy. This was the first time they had seen such characters. However, they had heard from Zhang Feng that these characters were simplified Chinese characters, which were more concise and clear. As for the actions of Chen Wanli and the others, was there even a need to mention it? They were all the products of Zhang Feng's training. Gloriously, it was said that this would help with the management of military-style teaching. In the beginning, everyone was so happy that they wanted to die. This was especially so when Zhang Feng left the academy to participate in the mid-autumn hunt. Almost the entire academy did nothing but focus on training these characters. In the past 7 days the results were obvious. At the very least, those who objected had shut their mouths. It seemed that even Mr. Xan Ben, who loved to nitpick, was full of praise for this method. At this moment, below the 3 statues of the teaching building, there was a high platform made of cement and bricks. On the high platform, fruits, tea and other items had already been placed. After Yu Shernan and the others sat down, Ouyang Sun frowned when he saw the basketball racks. He wanted to say something, but in the end he kept his mouth shut. There was a reason why they had to choose this place out of all the other places. This type of teaching building was unique even in the Tang Dynasty. In addition, with such a novel and innovative campus facility, it was also the time to show the strength of White Deer College. At this moment, Cheng Chumo once again urged the horses to go around the entrance of the mountain and the campus to pass on the latest information. When Cheng Chumo finally appeared, behind Yu Shernan and the others, Zhang Feng and the others had already appeared, sitting on poles as they slowly walked over. Seeing this, Yu Shernan waved his hand. Chen Wanli, who could not wait any longer, immediately shouted, "Everyone look to the right." Whoosh! A chorus of voices rang out. More than 2,000 students present instantly turned around. The sound of the soles of their feet rubbing against the cement floor instantly exploded into a loud noise. Salute! At this moment, looking at the students of White Deer College standing upright and thinking of the strange actions of the White Deer College students during the mid-autumn hunt, everyone who came to visit was stunned by this spectacular scene. Chapter 1009. Lu Hongwen finally regained his senses after much difficulty. Looking at the movements of more than 2,000 students, including the movements of raising their hands and placing them at the corners of their eyes and eyebrows, and the fact that they were all of similar height, he could not help but feel a little shocked. Thinking about it, as the top institution of learning in the Tang Dynasty, how many students did the Imperial College have? Putting aside the fact that these more than 2,000 people were trained for a short period of time, just this feat alone was enough to make people admire them. His Imperial College had less than 200 people in total, and all of them had high standards. Even if he, Lu Hongwen, had to wait for 2 hours to give them a lecture personally. But here? Yu Shernan waved his hand. The person who looked like a student roared. These people all made the same choice at the same time. What the hell? It was simply. Zhang Feng smiled slightly and gestured for the sedan bearers to lower the poles. He returned a military salute to Chen Wanli and shouted loudly, "Students, you've worked hard. Teacher, you've worked hard. You've served the people." Zhang Feng was very satisfied. When he left, he was really not sure if this military-style teaching could achieve any results by the time he returned. Therefore, when he returned to the academy, he asked Chen Tinyu to report to the academy first. But who would have thought that it would really look like a real thing? Chen Wanli was so excited that the corners of his mouth were trembling. He was so emotional that tears were flashing in his eyes. He shouted somewhat hoarsely, "All the students and teachers, a total of 2,731 people, are all present. Teacher, please inspect them." Good. Zhang Feng nodded. Then he turned around and looked at the shocked faces of the few people. He coughed, smiled, and made a gesture of invitation. He said, "Lord Qin, Lord He, Lord Sun, Dean Lu and Dean Ouyang, would you do me the honor of giving us a lecture?" It was only at this point that the 5 people reacted. Lecture? Wasn't this King nonsense? Was there a need for a lecture? This brat was clearly putting on a show for them. Ahem, President Zhang, you are really good at educating people. Lord He laughed and said again, "These 2,000 people must have been trained since the opening of the mountain gate, right? I didn't expect that President Zhang not only created such a miraculous dish like braised meat with white paper, but also managed the academy so well." No, Lord He, you're wrong. Zhang Feng sighed and said, "Actually, I only taught a few disciples when I had nothing to do. This kid is called Chen Wanli. He used to be very mischievous and I have a bad temper. After 3 days of teaching, I didn't expect him to teach the whole school during the few days I went to participate in the mid-autumn hunt." Puff. Hearing this, Lord He almost spat out a mouthful of blood. In the next few days? More than 2,000 people? Damn you, do you think you're a god? It was less than 10 days. Even if you didn't eat or sleep, you couldn't have reached such a level, right? Lord He smiled reluctantly. His hand behind his back turned to the people behind him for help for a moment, but no one came forward to answer him. He had to pretend to be stupid and laughed. "President Zhang is really good at running the academy. We really need to learn from you." Seeing that things were almost done, Zhang Feng made a gesture of invitation and said, "Very good, we can start the morning exercises." Yes. Hearing this, Chen Wanli turned around again and shouted, "The 8th set of radio gymnastics officially begins. Stretching, 1 2 3 4, 2 2 3 4. At this time Ouyang Kai and the others' eyes were fixed. Looking at the spectacular thing that they had never seen before, they hurriedly asked, "President Zhang, this is..." This is the 8th set of radio gymnastics. You know my philosophy of running the school. This thing is actually a kind of magic that evolved from the 5 animal frolics to strengthen the body. Without waiting for them to take their seats, Lu Hongwen, who reacted, pulled Zhang Feng and said, "Brother Zhang, President Zhang, can I have a word with you?" At this time they had already walked in front of Yu Shernan. It was not good for them to say anything. They hurriedly greeted Yu Shernan and the others, and then sat down on both sides with heavy hearts. At this time Zhang Feng was very comfortable. He winked at Yu Shernan and the others and they couldn't help laughing heartily. Then Yu Shernan pointed to the audience and said, "It's the first time you've come to the academy. Later, old man will prepare a public class. Please give me some advice." Hearing this, the corners of their mouths twitched. Ouyang Kai and the others could only pretend that they didn't hear it. The more they watched the morning exercises, the more excited they became. It was as if what they were watching was not morning exercises, but the magnificent feat of the Imperial College in front of the Emperor. It was as if they would be promoted in the next moment, after the 3 sets of radio gymnastics. Qian Wanli saluted again and said, "Reporting to the Dean, the 8th set of radio gymnastics has finished. Please give me instructions. Start the running exercise." Zhang Feng waved his hand lightly. Everyone look forward at ease, attention. Chapter 10:10. The anxiety of these people. Zhang Feng, Yu Shernan and the others all saw it. How could they not know that these people would be shocked? Even at this moment when they saw it again they were still shocked beyond words. After all, this thing was made by them. At the same time, Yu Shernan was well aware of what would happen if word of this got out. He did not need to think to know the content of the conversation between the people from the Imperial College and Zhang Feng. These people were definitely asking Zhang Feng for the method, but Zhang Feng did not agree. It seemed like this kid was up to no good. But it made sense. These guys had previously caused so much trouble for White Deer College. If not for Zhang Feng's resourcefulness, the college might not even be able to continue operating. After a while, Qian Wanli, Qing Chumo, and the others who had just returned to the college and changed into their uniforms slowly led the group of students out of the campus. Their orderly footsteps sounded like the galloping of thousands of soldiers and horses. It was a spectacular sight. At this moment, as the students slowly walked away, Lu Hongwen and the others could not help but stand up. They watched as these people left, still unable to react. Seeing this, Zhang Feng exchanged glances with Yu Shernan and the others again. They took the bait. "Everyone, it's time for dinner. Old man has prepared some wine, please come with us," Yu Shernan said with a smile. When everyone heard this, who would dare to disobey? They hurriedly thanked him and followed Yu Shernan and the others. They hung around with mixed feelings. Zhang Feng also took the opportunity to introduce the construction of the college, the technology building, the activity room, and so on. In any case, he described everything as awesome, especially the basketball. In the end, Zhang Feng and Lord Qian from the Ministry of Works laughed and hugged each other, calling each other brothers. No one knew what they were talking about. Although Ouyang Sun did not like it and felt that it was a disgrace to the educated. Although that was what he said, when he saw Zhang Feng and that person's behavior, he could faintly feel that there was something fishy going on. Yu Shernan secretly patted Ouyang Sun's shoulder and signaled him to ignore it. Ouyang Sun shook his head and walked towards the cafeteria. The most important place in the White Deer Academy, other than the confidential information room and the teacher's office, would be the canteen. Just as Zhang Feng had said, food was the most important thing in the White Deer Academy. If one couldn't even enjoy their meals in a carefree environment, how would they be able to enjoy their meals? The cafeteria was on the first floor of the dormitory building. Although the dormitory building was not ready, the cafeteria on the first floor was ready first. After all, they had eaten outdoor meals for more than a month. The students on the mountain complained incessantly. The newly built cafeteria was designed according to the university cafeteria of the 21st century. It was divided into 2 floors. The first floor was for students, but the second floor was awesome. There were stir-fried dishes and small private rooms. You could receive guests here on a daily basis. Even if you were a student, as long as you had a meal ticket issued by the college, you could come here to spend money. As for money, sorry, we won't accept it. I don't know. At this moment, in a private room on the second floor, a dazzling array of specialty products were piled up on the table. After the hosts and guests sat down, Ouyang Kai hurriedly stood up and said to Ouyang Sun, "Mr. X and Ben, do you remember?" "I don't know." Without waiting for him to finish, Ouyang Sun directly interrupted Ouyang Kai. He really did know this person. Although his surname was also Ouyang, they had nothing to do with each other. Now that he said that, Ouyang Kai could only smile and raise his wine cup. I am Hongwen Guan's chancellor and also the dean. Ouyang Kai is also here. Today's visit was a little rushed. Another day I will bring gifts to apologize. I hope the 4 teachers can forgive me. Ouyang Sun ignored him and continued to drink. Seeing this, Chu Suiliang laughed and raised his wine cup. Today White Deer College did not take care of you well. I hope everyone can forgive me. After a series of superficial pleasantries, everyone fell into the trap. Now that Zhang Yuyao and Jing Shu were gone, everyone was more relaxed. After all, it was not appropriate to have women in this kind of situation. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 dishes, especially the pig feast on the table as well as the 3 beggars' chickens and the big geese, everyone had a rich aftertaste. After the meal it was time to talk about business. Lord He glanced around and then discussed something with Lord Qian and another official from the Ministry of Rites whose name he did not know, as well as Lu Hongwen and Ouyang Kai. At this moment Yu Shernan said faintly, "Since you still have things to talk about, old man and the others will not disturb you. As for other things, the old man and the others can't make the decision. Therefore, everything depends on President Zhang's decision." While speaking, Yu Shernan and the others slowly walked out of the private room with their hands behind their backs. Until now, Ouyang Kai and the others were completely relaxed. They looked at each other and raised their wine glasses, saying, "President Zhang, Brother Zhang, we don't know each other until we fight. Now there are only 4 academies in Chang'an City. We should be united and fight for the rise of the Tang Dynasty together." After the 2 of them spoke a lot of nonsense passionately, the atmosphere changed. Their faces turned bitter as they said, "But after seeing Brother Zhang's academy and thinking about our academy, it's just like, alas. Brother Zhang, let's not beat around the bush. We also know that you like to be straightforward. In this case, let's be frank. Can you give up these things of your academy?" Hearing this, Zhang Feng cracked his mouth and smiled. It's reasonable to say that all academies in the world are descendants of Confucius and Mencius. But as you have seen, my academy is small and I'm suffering here. Chapter 10-11. Hearing this, the 5 of them couldn't help but be vigilant. But they also saw this thing, and it was indeed the academy. Whether it was the dining hall that was brighter than their extra bedroom, the unconventional teaching building, or the cement, all of them were things that they coveted. But now, although they knew that Zhang Feng didn't have any good intentions, and they had targeted Zhang Feng before, it would be strange if Zhang Feng didn't take revenge on them. However, since they had already spoken, they were prepared to be cheated. As long as they got these skills, no matter how much they were cheated, they believed that their master would bear it and give them a big credit. This was the reason why they were prepared to speak this time. Their families had huge industrial chains, and if they could get the materials used by Zhang Feng to build the academy, this unique building method, and this method of training students, even if Zhang Feng wanted their official positions, they would immediately give them up if they could get their hands on it. After thinking all this through, Lord He and Zhongtian of the Ministry of Personnel looked at Zhang Feng, who had been poor all this time, and said, "Prince Zhang, I think you don't know that we are the children of the 8 big families in Guanlong. I think you also know this. I admit that we did have some estrangement and misunderstanding before, but in this world, there are no eternal conflicts, only eternal interests." Zhang Feng knew that these people would say this. On the way to the dining hall just now, the official surnamed Qian was fooled. At this time he was still thinking about the basketball that could prolong people's life and the formula of the bone-strengthening powder. Seeing that Lord He was talking, how could Lord Qian sit still? He hurriedly got up and said, "Brother Zhang Feng, I am not talented. This time I am prepared to offer 50,000 taels of gold to buy the formula of the bone-strengthening powder. What do you think? As for the rest of the things, as long as I can afford it, as long as you say it, even if it is my life, I will give it to you. I have a lot of properties in Chang'an City, about 73 in total. Although most of them are my family's properties, the deeds of these properties are in the hands of someone before me. Also, there are thousands of acres of fertile land outside Chang'an City. In Liang Province, they are all my properties." Lord Qian talked about his background in a roundabout way, but as for whether he was telling the truth or not, only God knew. However, when Zhang Feng carefully observed their faces, he found that even though Qian Jinbao's words were enough to shock Zhang Feng, these people still didn't bat an eyelid, as if they were used to it. At this time, Zhang Feng really realized the horror of these big families. If he didn't count, he wouldn't have known, but now that he did, the great Tang was basically a mere figurehead. At this time, if he really went to war with them, Zhang Feng couldn't help but feel a little worried. After all, at this time Old Ox and the others had already gone to chase the mysterious man. If they really went to war, then the matter would be completely serious. Especially the one in the palace. Sending Li Xiaogong out to hold the fort at this time was enough to explain a lot of problems. In case that one made up his mind and decided to completely go against these big families, then the consequences were obvious. No matter how many new tricks he came up with, he would only follow in the footsteps of Yang Guang of the Sui dynasty. Zhang Feng sighed and said with a wry smile, "Old Qian, you really scared me. I have seen rich people, but I never thought that you were hiding so deeply." Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, "Well, I know everything about you. We did have some misunderstandings before. As old he said, there is no lasting hatred in the world, only eternal interests. I, Zhang Feng, opened the academy for fame and profit. What else can I do besides that? But now you have said so much in one breath. I can't take it. How about this? Let me think about it. You don't have to leave today. You can stay on my mountain and let your students have in-depth experiences and exchanges with my academy students on the mountain. What do you think?" Lu Hongwen and Ouyang Kai heard this and their eyelids couldn't help but twitch fiercely. If Zhang Feng hadn't mentioned it at this time, they really would have forgotten about it. To be honest, the environment on the mountain made even the few of them have the urge to not walk, let alone the students. Seeing that Zhang Feng wanted to calm down. At the same time, they urgently needed to send all their students back to the academy. Moreover, they knew that this kid must have never seen so much money. Everyone pondered for a while, then nodded heavily and said, "Since that's the case, let's talk again tomorrow at this time. How about it?" "Sure." Zhang Feng heard this and nodded quickly. "Then we won't disturb you anymore. Let's walk around the mountain and experience the scenery of White Deer College, okay?" Zhang Feng agreed wholeheartedly. He hurriedly leaned against the window and grabbed 2 passing students to walk around the mountain. Then he rushed out of the canteen to find Zhang Sun and said hurriedly, "Go down the mountain immediately and hand over Lao Li to me. Tell him that something big has happened. Now all the matters against those aristocratic families are to be suspended." Chapter 10-12. After Zhang Feng sent these people away with great difficulty, he thought it over and decided that it would be best to send Zhang Yuyao and Jingshu back to the residence. After all, Biyuan was located in one of the 16 royal cities. It was also the safest place at the moment. From the looks of it, this matter wasn't as simple as Zhang Feng had thought. If he completely fell out with the 5 surnames and 7 Wang, the Guanlong 8 great families and the Shandong clan, the consequences would be unthinkable. Moreover, this matter had already involved 2 families. The Shandong landowning household had yet to appear, so no one knew if the Shandong landowning household was involved. Therefore Zhang Feng felt a bit guilty. It wasn't that Zhang Feng was afraid, but that once this matter began, there would be no turning back. At that time, there would only be 2 paths to choose between life and death. There wouldn't be a third possibility. Zhang Feng smoked one cigarette after another. The small wooden hut was quickly enveloped in a thick gloomy atmosphere. After an unknown amount of time, Zhang Sun rushed in with Li Shimin and Lu Ruochen. They hurriedly rode their white horses and killed their way to the main entrance of White Deer College. Li Shimin's expression was very ugly. He urged his horse to look around the mountain entrance and coldly asked the guard at the entrance, "Where is Zhang Feng?" The guard had never seen the emperor reveal such an imperious aura outside the palace. After all, this was the first time he had seen it on this desolate mountain. His heart trembled as he hastily pointed in the direction of Zhang Feng's small wooden hut. Li Shimin urged his horse on and didn't care about anything else as he charged straight for the door of the small wooden hut. The galloping white horse was rather docile. Just as it was about to crash into the small wooden hut, Li Shimin pulled on the reins. The white horse raised its head to the sky and neighed. Then it snorted and spun around on the ground. Only then did Li Shimin jump off the horse's back. Although this white horse was selected from tens of thousands of horses after a strict screening by the people in the palace, according to the appearance of the white horse that Li Shimin had beheaded at the bank of the Wei River. Although it was still not as brave as Li Shimin's white horse, it was good that this horse was docile. Just like Li Shimin at this moment, Li Shimin was very fond of her. Even though Li Shimin was already standing at the door of Zhang Feng's cabin, the white horse still rubbed against Li Shimin's sleeve, as if asking if he should wait here. Li Shimin stroked the white horse's mane, then looked at Cheng Chumo and said, "No one is allowed to enter the cabin within 10 steps of it." After giving the order, Li Shimin took a deep breath and entered the cabin. As soon as he entered the cabin, Li Shimin frowned slightly. Looking at the smoke and fog in the cabin, he suppressed his anger and went in. As soon as he entered, Zhang Feng saw Li Shimin. He pointed to the stool next to him and asked, "Why are you only here now?" Li Shimin was a little speechless. After receiving Cheng Chumo's message, He suspended all the government affairs and rushed over without stopping. He even rode the white horse all the way from the palace. He also heard something from Zhang Feng's words and hurriedly asked, "What happened? Do you know what those people promised me today?" Zhang Feng's expression was solemn, and he stopped fooling around. He looked at Li Shimin and asked. Li Shimin frowned and said, "It's nothing more than those gold, silver, jewelry, rare treasures and the like. What else can they have?" Zhang Feng nodded and then shook his head. "In fact, they didn't promise me anything today. They just gave me a list, especially the guy surnamed Qian. Do you know that his family has more than 70 branches in Chang'an City, and these are just the shops, not including other houses and the like. Moreover, they are just in the area of Liang Province. From what he said, it seems that all the properties in Liang Province belong to his family. And outside Chang'an City, there seems to be thousands of acres of fertile land. Do you know what this means?" Li Shimin's face couldn't help but become gloomy in an instant. He had been very vigilant about the Guanlong 8 families and the people of the 5 surnames and 7 Wangs. He was so vigilant that he would personally ask about them every time. But even so, he still couldn't imagine that these people actually had so many properties in Chang'an City. If the Guanlong 8 families were like this, then what about the other 7 families? What about the people of the 5 surnames and 7 Wangs? What about the people in Shandong? In that case, how many properties in Chang'an City belong to individual investors? Li Shimin couldn't help but change his expression again. At this time he also thought of many things, especially what Zhang Feng just said. He even thought about it to the extent that Zhang Feng couldn't imagine. After all, he had dealt with these families more times than Zhang Feng, so he definitely knew more inside stories than Zhang Feng. At this time, Li Shimin turned to ask Zhang Feng, "Fengzi, what do you think about this matter? I heard from Tainyo and Chongzi that when you confronted the people of the Imperial College in the Red Pavilion during the mid-autumn hunt, did you find a person hiding nearby? Did you see who this person was? Or did you remember his appearance?" Chapter 11:13. Zhang Feng smiled bitterly and said, "I just vaguely felt a pair of cold eyes staring at me from behind like a poisonous snake. However, this feeling was very subtle. I just subconsciously turned my head to look for him. By chance, I saw that person's back and that person disappeared. Then Li Xiaogong from the Ministry of Personnel, Lord Li, and Old Qin chased after him at the same time. I don't know what happened after that, but I think this matter should have something to do with the people of the Taiyuan Wang clan." When Li Shimin heard this, his intuition told him that this matter seemed to be a little strange. He asked, "Then do you think this person could be someone else? For example, the farmer who grazes in the mountains, the child, or the people of the Shandong gentry?" Before he finished speaking, Li Shimin felt a little ridiculous. Before the mid-autumn hunt, he had already contacted the local officials. The local officials would also send out all the notices a month before the autumn hunt began. They would also conduct a search of the entire area before the mid-autumn hunt began. Under normal circumstances, the location of the mid-autumn hunt could only be determined 3 days before the mid-autumn hunt, or on the same day. On one hand, this could play a role in protecting the public. On the other hand, it was to ensure the order of the autumn hunt. However, Li Shimin heard that there were still many onlookers at the scene. Although they were standing far away, what did this mean? This meant that this matter was uncertain. If the people of the Taiyuan Wang clan were here, they definitely knew that they would definitely be watched this time. Moreover, as one of the 5 clans and 7 watches, if they could come, it meant that they already knew everything. As one of the 4 gods of war of the Tang Dynasty, Niu Jinda would be watched by countless people at any time and place. At this time, when Li Shimin sent him to Nantian County, there would definitely be countless people staring at Niu Jinda. When he sent Niu Jinda here, he wanted to let him intimidate these people. However, even with that being the case, the people from the Taiyuan Wang clan still came. However, Li Shimin felt that this time, it was very likely that they had come to get close to Zhang Feng. It was very likely that they didn't know there was a coal mine here, but they wanted to find out what Niu Jinda was doing. As long as they arrived, they would definitely know that the mid-autumn hunt was being held here. But even so, as long as they had the slightest bit of intelligence, they would never do something so stupid as to alert the enemy. Then, who was the culprit behind this? Li Shimin could not help but feel dizzy. There were many uncertain factors in this. If only one of them made sense, he would let it go. However, the more he investigated, the more he found out. The more people were involved, the more chaotic it became. Before this, he had already made corresponding arrangements in the palace. Especially before Zhang Sun arrived, he had already received the news about what happened in Lantian County and the fact that Li Xiaogong and Qing Yaojin were searching for the mysterious man. Li Shimin had already sent 5,000 elites from the Chang and military camp to Lantian County. He swore that he must find the mysterious man and try to get something out of him. However, less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea after his secret order was sent out, Zhang Sunchong brought him a piece of extremely shocking news. Zhang Feng actually asked him to stop dealing with Guanlong, the 5 surnames and 7 Wangs, and the Shandong aristocrats. He even directly treated the incident in Lantian County as if it had never happened. Li Shimin really did not understand what Zhang Feng was thinking. He even mistakenly thought that Zhang Feng had reconciled with the people of Hongwen Guan and the Imperial College. However, at this time, it seemed that it was not so simple. Just from the fact that Zhang Feng mentioned the industries managed by the Ministry of Personnel Affairs, Li Shimin felt the seriousness of the matter. He immediately denied the possibility that the Wang clan of Taiyuan was involved. If it was not the Wang clan of Taiyuan, then who was it? The more Li Shimin thought about it, the more he felt his head hurt. Here. After smoking 5 cigarettes in a row, Li Shimin asked, somewhat annoyed. Frenzy, what do you think we should do now? We can't keep hanging like this. This matter has to be solved sooner or later. Zhang Feng nodded. This matter does have to be solved, but not now and not in the future. In short, Lao Li, you only need to remember one thing. If you move, you must make a thunderous strike. Otherwise, you have to lie down steadily. Otherwise, for us, it will be a disaster. Li Shimin naturally understood the meaning of Zhang Feng's words. However, could he sit still at this time? The matter against the Guanlong Corporation had actually started long ago. However, because of the 8 waters of Chang, and these people actually all went into hiding. This gave Li Shimin no excuse to make a move. However, at this time when he finally found an excuse to make a move, just let them go like this? Li Shimin was not willing to accept this. Zhang Feng also saw Li Shimin's unwillingness. He smiled faintly and said, actually, you should be able to understand that I called you up the mountain today. You should be able to guess that I have already thought of a way to deal with these people. Li Shimin heard this and instantly understood. You scared me. Since you should have told me earlier. You made me worry for a long time. Tell me, what are your plans? Zhang Feng smiled and said, I don't have any plans. However, I have a brilliant plan now. Now they are not interested in my bone-strengthening powder and my paper-making technique. Anyway, in short, they are interested in all the things that I, Zhang Feng, have made now. Do you think I will let them go easily? Chapter 11:14. Hearing this, Li Shimin's eyes flashed with an unconcealable murderous intent. However, Zhang Feng hurriedly waved his hand and said, Lao Li, don't worry. You know these things will spread in the Tang Dynasty sooner or later. I'm still thinking about how to speed up the spread of this thing, especially this basketball thing. It's difficult to spread this thing with only our family, but if these big families do it for us, think about it. Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimin with a smile. Seeing that Li Shimin was silent, he laughed and said, although all our plans are very good at this time, there are also great risks. For example, what if these people make a bad move? What should we do? Haven't you seen the key point that they haven't made a move yet? Li Shimin stood up with a swoosh sound. His eyes revealed a contemplative look as he muttered to himself. You're saying that this autumn hunt is actually a warning to you? If you don't take the bait, they will. Zhang Feng nodded with appreciation. Yes. I only used one trick to beat them at their own game. While speaking, Zhang Feng laughed heartily. Oldly, you're a businessman. Think about it. One day you offend someone. Someone brings a group of people to mess with your business and they do it every day. They even stab you in the back and make you feel disgusted. What would you do? Li Shimin nodded with a gloomy face, but he still said with some uncertainty, doesn't that mean that everything we do now will become a wedding dress and benefit those people? This was something Li Shimin didn't want to see. Once it happened, Li Shimin would dare to strangle all these things in the cradle at all costs, even if he really went to war with these 3 families at this time. This was Li Shimin's bottom line. He couldn't break through. However, Zhang Feng slowly said, Lao Li, don't worry. I have a solution for this. Think about my winemaking technique. Although I was tricked by you last time, we are brothers, so I'm not afraid. But even so, I still have a trick up my sleeve. Maybe you haven't realized it yet, but there is still a final step to the winemaking technique I gave you. Is it stuck in my hand? Zhang Feng laughed complacently. Li Shimin's eyes slightly moved, but he still forced a smile and said, actually, I've already thought about this matter, but as you said, we're brothers, so we don't care. You should know that in this world, a person's heart is always like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Today he has obtained what you have, but tomorrow he will want what you have. Especially the Guanlong 8 great clans as well as the 5 surnames and 7 hopes. Otherwise, how do you think they have managed to survive all these years? Why does the current emperor want to deal with them? And to put it bluntly, do you think Laoli has a good life because of me? In fact, I've been targeted by them for a long time. Otherwise, what do you think I've been busy with during this time? In fact, I've been busy with these things. Li Shimin casually made up a lie. Combining the lie with the truth, he mixed his thoughts and brought them out. However, Li Shimin was right about one thing. That was, the history of the Guanlong group and the 5 surnames and 7 hopes was really a bit despicable. Once, for a gold mine, the Wang clan even slaughtered an entire village overnight. Even though he was extremely angry at that time, he could only grit his teeth and endure it. Because at that time he was still unable to compete with them. But now it was different. The door of water trade had been opened. The water trade that basically belonged to the imperial court had been completed, even if they were in a deadlock with them at this time. That would not paralyze the economy of the Tang dynasty at this time, but it would still have a certain impact. For example, at this time the outside world was uncertain. This was something that Li Shimin had some concerns about. If they were going to attack Zhang Feng at this time, Li Shimin would never sit back and do nothing. After all, Zhang Feng had developed this kind of invincible weapon at this time. What was Li Shimin afraid of? Moreover, he also knew that once the invincible weapon in Zhang Feng's hands was leaked, it would bring terrible consequences to the Tang dynasty. Therefore, Li Shimin at this time, you would rather fight to the death than let this thing fall into the hands of others. If he waited for another month and the firearms mentioned by Zhang Feng were produced, Li Shimin would dare to drive all the aristocratic forces out of the Tang dynasty in half a year. Moreover, he would be able to make those dishonest Turks and other countries around the Tang dynasty obediently stay at home. He could even fight on 2 or even 3 fronts at the same time. This was Li Shimin's confidence. His confidence came from the invincible spear and the invincible shield. Although he was not sure about the power of the firearms at this time, Li Shimin also had some expectations for the weapons that Zhang Feng praised so much. However, this expectation was not strong. After all, according to Li Shimin's way of thinking, fighting on 2 fronts was nothing more than a battle of strength and strength, as well as the range of arrows and so on. Chapter 11:15. As long as he had Zhang Feng's steel, Li Shimin could raise the combat effectiveness of the already powerful Tang dynasty soldiers to another level. However, while Li Shimin was indulging in his imagination, Zhang Feng said, "In fact, what you said is also possible, but the premise is that those people are waiting for us to do it. Those people are just waiting for us to deal with them. Otherwise, do you think they're fools? Do you think they'll just wait for us to come knocking on their door to harvest leeks?" Hearing this, Li Shimin couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He sighed and said, "Then tell me, what are your plans?" Zhang Feng smiled mysteriously. "Actually, I've already told you about it. It's just like liquor. It's a new business model." Business is business again. Li Shimin was speechless. His previous lie had caused Zhang Feng to think that he was a businessman. Although Li Shimin had accepted the idea of running a country through business, and the Tang dynasty was basically running in this way, he still felt uncomfortable. Although he felt a little speechless, he still listened to Zhang Feng patiently. Zhang Feng continued, "In fact, I have already discussed this new business model in advance. For example, the hotels of White Deer College in Chang'an." Li Shimin was slightly surprised. "Are you talking about the Chang'an Hotel?" "Yes." Zhang Feng nodded. "In fact, this is a business model. Think about it. As long as we control the supply, they are only responsible for running errands, operating and retailing for us. Although we may lose a lot in a short time, have you thought about how many people they have? Not only can we sell this thing, but we can also give them the recipe of this braised meat. But do you know how many ingredients are in the recipe of this braised meat? Only we can make these ingredients. If they want to make it, I can guarantee that there is no second person in the world except for me, Zhang Feng. Even if old Sun makes it himself, he can't make the same level of braised meat as I make it." Li Shimin could not help but frown. "You brat, could it be that you want to use this method to firmly grasp these people in your hands just like how you dealt with the Turks and Tibetans back then?" Hearing this, Zhang Feng laughed and said, oldly, you finally comprehended the Tao. Not bad, not bad. This is my method. What do you think? As long as we always have a piece of meat in our hands, no matter if they are wolves, tigers, leopards, or wild dogs, they will follow us closely. Moreover, once we take back this piece of meat, these people will be like dogs, wagging their tails and begging for mercy. Do you believe me?" Seeing that Li Shimin was a little confused, Zhang Feng could only say, "I'll use the braised meat business method as an example. In fact, this is very simple. As long as we have the recipe of the braised meat, we will sell them the management rights. For example, the management rights of a store, which is the franchise fee of the branch, we will sell a store to them for 500,000 strings of cash or 1 million strings of cash. Moreover, we will only sell them the right to operate the store. They will all fight to get it. Do you know why? Because you have seen the prospects of this braised meat. What they value is the profit margin, so they will not hesitate to pay a mere 500,000 strings of cash or 1 million strings of cash. But do you think that is the end? Zhang Feng smiled coldly. This is just the beginning. After receiving the joining fee, they will have to pay us an additional fee every time they purchase braised food. Let's say that a bag of braised food can be used to braise 2 caddies of meat, but we only told them that it can only be used to braise 1 caddy. Do you think they will notice anything? If they don't do it according to our method, we only need to add that they will be responsible for the consequences. Do you think they will dare to not listen to us? Li Shimin heard this and pursed his lips. At this time he was actually speechless. He was deeply stunned by Zhang Feng. Who taught this kid this business method? Li Shimin was speechless and gave a thumbs up. You are too sinister, kid. But I like this. Continue talking. What do you want to do next? Do what? Zhang Feng patted Li Shimin's shoulder with certainty. It's very simple. Just sit there and collect money. Think about it. We have arranged everything. Why do we have to spend so much effort to do things? For example, we have hired assistants. Why do we have to do it ourselves? They bought one of our branches and tasted the benefits. They will definitely want to operate a second, third, and fourth branch. If that is the case, what do you think will happen to us? Hiss. Li Shimin sucked in a breath of cold air. Chapter 11:16. Take the Chang and Hotel for example. Although it was said that there were only 70 branches in Chang and City, the business of the other restaurants and taverns in Chang and City was monopolized in an instant after they opened. Just think about it. There were only 70 branches. Besides Chang and City, how many prefectures and prefectures were there in the Tang Dynasty? How many counties were there? How many places were there where restaurants could be opened? If all these places were filled with such hotels, what would it be like? However, the more he thought about it, the more scared Li Shimin was. He hurriedly asked, if that's the case, won't they earn all the money? Even if they only take half of the money, it's still an extremely terrifying number. Zhang Feng pointed at Li Shimin's head and said, you're muddle-headed, but sometimes you're really muddle-headed. Do you think that I, Zhang Feng, only have one business? When Li Shimin heard this, he said, don't tell me you want to hand over all your assets to them to manage. If that's the case, wouldn't you be raising a tiger and inviting calamity? No, you can't do that. You're definitely raising a tiger and inviting calamity. How could Li Shimin allow such a thing to happen? At this time he couldn't wait to kill all these people himself. How could he let these people do these things? What was this? This was raising a tiger and inviting calamity. However, Zhang Feng didn't think so. He was just like Qianlong and Hushan. Why did Qianlong put Hushan in such an important position? He knew that Qianlong was insatiably greedy because of Hushan's greed. Zhang Feng once saw the most classic scene in the TV series. It was when Qianlong Emperor entered the prison to visit Ji Xiaolan and said, the more greedy a person is, the more he wants to get more. Because he has a goal, that is, greed. The premise of his greed is that he can get it from you. If he can get it from you continuously, then he will try his best to do things for you. What did Qianlong do in such a cycle? He only did one thing. That was to give He Jin a hard time and beat him up. He arranged for Ji Xiaolan to be by his side. There was another sentence that Zhang Feng remembered very clearly. Hushan fell and Jiaqing was full. This was also an invisible boss gift that Emperor Qianlong left for Emperor Jiaqing. Qianlong Emperor couldn't bear to do anything to He Shen because he was merciful. After all, he had followed him for his entire life. There was no merit, but there was hard work. Moreover, a lot of the dirty work was done by He Shen. After all, He Shen didn't do anything that he particularly hated. But what about the 5 families and 7 Wangs and the Guanlong family? At this moment, the emperor wished he could drink their blood. Zhang Feng explained everything he knew to Li Shimin in detail, especially the matter between Qianlong and He Shen. He explained it to Li Shimin in a different way. Lao Li, I once saw a fragment in an unofficial history. There was once a king of the state of Qi. The only thing he did in his life was to raise 2 people. One of them was surnamed He, and his name was Hushan. He was a scholar official of the current dynasty. He was very greedy, but he was very capable. Every time the Qi emperor gave him a task, he would always think of a way to get it done, especially if it was related to money. King Qi also thinks highly of that person. However, there is another scholar official in between. That scholar official's name is Ji Xiaolan. That scholar official is incomparably honest and incorruptible, But he abhors the insatiable Lord He. There was once when Lord Ji reprimanded King Qi for using corrupt officials in court. King Qi flew into a rage and locked him up in prison. When King Qi visited him in the middle of the night, he said something to Lord Ji, how to write the official title of an official and the meaning behind it. With Zhang Feng's explanation, Li Shimin finally understood. He couldn't help but think of the policy Zhang Feng had formulated to deal with Tubo. Thinking about it carefully, Li Shimin seemed to have misled him. Li Shimin said with some admiration, "Fortunately, I have you. Otherwise, I really don't know how to resolve this matter. You know, when I was notified, I was almost ready to report this matter to the Lord Zhangsun. I even began to deploy. I took in all the servants in Chang'an and the surrounding industries, as well as the guards I had recently taken in. Almost 2,000 people. I was prepared to capture this mysterious person and the person behind this mysterious person. Thinking about it now, I really did have some impulse." Li Shimin shook his head and smiled bitterly. Zhang Feng laughed and said, "Now do you understand why I'm doing this? In fact, sometimes, the way of business can also be regarded as the way of national policy. Today Lord Chen told me something. It was also because of this that I was enlightened. He said that there are no eternal enemies in this world, only eternal interests. You know, if we wholeheartedly think about their money when our textile factory, rubber factory, tin boat and iron wheelbarrow all start operating, we won't even consider this. In addition, you have seen the new construction methods of White Deer College on Shao Mountain, as well as the cement and other things. Although these things seem to be making a lot of money now, the more their industries expand, the more they will spread out. At that time they will be more and more involved with us. When that time comes, once you decide to attack them, it will be impossible for them to gather all their forces together." Chapter 11:17. Zhang Feng turned around and took out a cigarette from the bamboo tube on the table. "You see, what I'm holding now is actually the current state of the Guanlong Group and the 5 surnames, 7 hopes and the Guanlong Group. At this time they seem to have twisted into a force. Even if we know that they are very soft, you can squeeze your fist and see if you can crush them." While speaking, Zhang Zhong opened the palm of the incense in his hand and sprinkled the incense all over the table. Then Zhang Feng pointed to the cigarettes on the table and the ground. "But this is the situation after they took over our business. We are always waiting for them to exhaust themselves. We are always in the planning, but they are tired of making money and dealing with their business. They are not in the mood to do something. In this case, think about it. Once we gather a force at this time and break them one by one, do you think they have the time and ability to organize a force that can compete with us in a short time? Aristocratic families are very cruel. The only purpose of their existence is to expand the family business. In this way their bloodline will occupy more resources in the family. In other words, sometimes they are not united in their own interests. Every single one of his properties needs guards and every single one of his properties needs a manager. Unknowingly, the backbone of his family has been scattered. If we were to attack the root of the problem at this time, think about it. Was there a need to think about it? Zhang Feng had already explained it in detail. If he still didn't understand this, Li Shimin would really have lived in vain. Li Shimin wanted to look up to the sky and roar at this time, as if he had already seen the miserable state of the Guanlong Group and the 5 surnames and 7 hopes. "Fengzi, oh Fengzi, I really don't know how your brain works. You actually came up with such a sinister plan. Since that's the case, I won't care about this matter anymore. You can do whatever you want to do. But remember, you have me behind you and I have Lord Zhangsun behind me. You should know very well who is behind Lord Zhangsun, because that person hates these clans more than any of us." Li Shimin left in the same hurry as when he came. It was just that when he came, his face was very gloomy, but when he left, his face was brimming with an unstoppable smile. No one knew what was going on with him. Even Zhang Sunchong acted like a monk. He rubbed his head and looked in the direction Li Shimin had left, then looked at Zhang Feng's hut. In the end he mumbled something to himself and left. Nothing happened that night. Early the next morning, Cheng Chumo hurriedly came to Zhang Feng's cabin. Fengzi, get up, something's wrong." Under Cheng Chumo's crazy shaking, Zhang Feng was dragged out of bed with sleepy eyes. Zhang Feng glared at Cheng Chumo and said angrily, "If you have something to say, say it. If you have something to fart, then scram." Cheng Chumo excitedly pointed at the door and said, "A lot of people came here early in the morning and they even brought boxes of things to move up the mountain. 2 hours ago there were already people moving things up the mountain. Those people were like a long line from your door to the mountain gate. They were all piled up to carry such a big box." Cheng Chumo finished what he wanted to say in one breath. Furthermore, he made an exaggerated gesture of hugging, indicating how big the box was. Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. If he knew how big the box was, couldn't he just go out and take a look? Did he have to be like this? Cheng Chumo didn't see Zhang Feng rolling his eyes and continued, "Go take a look outside. There are still people moving things up. I heard that those were brought up by the Ministry of Works, Ministry of Personnel, Imperial College, and Red Pavilion's deans who came with us yesterday. They said they wanted to give it to you." As he spoke, Cheng Chumo shook Zhang Feng with all his might and said, "Feng Zi, you've really struck it rich this time. Don't forget about me, your brother. Do you know that I'm so poor now that I haven't even gone to Swallow Descent Restaurant in a long time?" Upon hearing Swallow Descent Restaurant, Zhang Feng couldn't help but want to beat someone up. Previously, this fellow had gotten someone pregnant, and he still didn't know what happened in the end. Now that he was itching for a beating, he was thinking about that again? Zhang Feng pushed away the big face in front of him and glared at him. "What nonsense are you talking about? Do you believe that I won't beat you up?" Cheng Chumo didn't care about those things, but he felt that Zhang Feng's choice of words was a little inappropriate. "You can kick with your feet, but you king beat with your hands. What's the meaning of that? Wasn't this description a little too feminine?" Zhang Feng didn't feel sleepy at all. He didn't know what these fellows were up to, so he hurriedly put on his clothes and went out to take a look. The moment Zhang Feng went out, he saw boxes of things piled up at the mountain entrance. It was as tall as a small mountain. At this moment, there were even a dozen people from Tong Huifang taking notes. As they were taking notes, they were also talking to the people who were dressed like butlers who were delivering the boxes. At this moment, the old village chief was like a smiling Buddha. He watched as the boxes were placed in front of Zhang Feng's door. Only then did he look at those people as if they were thieves. When those people left the boxes, he smiled and went to welcome the next person. Chapter 11:18. At this time at the mountain gate, He Zhongjing and the others from yesterday were accompanying the old village chief, making him laugh heartily. The old village chief also saw Zhang Feng come out. He hurriedly leaned on his walking stick and hobbled over like a 3-year-old child. Before he got close, he said with a smile, "Yo, you're awake?" This call was very affectionate. Zhang Feng was speechless. He pointed at the door and said, "Old village chief, what's going on? What are all these things?" The smile on the old village chief's face was as bright as the blooming chrysanthemums in the mountain. He hurriedly whispered into Zhang Hong's ear, "Kid, I don't know what you're doing. These people are crazily moving money up the mountain. I saw that this box is full of money. And it's not copper coins, it's gold coins." These people really didn't want to give up. They really wanted to get their hands on the things in his hands. Without even waiting for his consent, he had decided to go all out and burn all the boats? At this time Lord Qin, Lord He, Lu Hongwen, and Ouyang Kai saw Zhang Feng come out. It was as if they had just seen Zhang Feng. They said in surprise, "Ah, isn't this Prince Zhang? Why don't you rest for a while? After all, you've been tired for the past few days. Prince Zhang, these are just small gifts from us. I hope you don't mind." How could Zhang Feng sleep at this time? He cupped his fists at them and walked quickly towards them. He also instructed the workers in Tonghui Lane to be gentle when moving things. There were treasures in here. If they bumped into anything, he wouldn't be able to afford to pay for it. When he reached the 5 people, Zhang Feng pretended to be angry and said, "I say, brothers, what is the meaning of this? Moving so many things here so early in the morning, where do you expect me to put my face? Those who don't know might think that I, Zhang Feng, am a petty person who forgets righteousness in the face of profit. Quickly take them back. We can't do this." The eyes of the 5 of them flashed when they saw this, and they hurriedly persuaded earnestly, "Ayaya, brother Zhang Feng, what are you talking about? We should have come here a long time ago. You should be aware that there are many miscellaneous matters in the academy, and we can't leave for a short period of time. Since White Deer Academy is about to open its doors, we don't have anything else, so we could only bring these ordinary things. I hope brother Zhang Feng won't blame us." Zhang Feng saw that they were sincere. Even Ouyang Kai was about to cry and was about to kneel down in front of Zhang Feng. He hurriedly grabbed Ouyang Kai's arm and sighed emotionally, "That's my brother. If it weren't for the fact that there are so many things to take care of, I would have dragged you 5 brothers here today and become sworn brothers. Let's go, let's drink. If there's anything, let's talk inside, okay?" Hearing Zhang Feng's words, the 5 people instantly calmed down. They hurriedly said, Okay, let's go, let's talk inside. There's no rush." As they spoke, the 5 people crowded around Zhang Feng and hurriedly entered Zhang Feng's little wooden hut. This was the first time they had entered Zhang Feng's hut. Once they entered, everything they saw was strange. In addition, Zhang Feng was deliberately showing off. As soon as they entered, He gave out handfuls of cigarettes to the 5 of them as if they were free. Although the 5 of them had seen these cigarettes before and heard of their reputation, this was the first time they had smoked to their heart's content. After all, these things were too expensive. The most important thing was that these things were in Chang'an City. No matter how rich you were, you might not be able to buy them. Although they were coughing non-stop at this moment, they still grinned and exclaimed repeatedly, "Good stuff, this is the real good stuff." Hearing this, Zhang Feng slapped his thigh. What kind of good stuff is this? These are all cheap things. You brothers probably haven't drunk the wine I brewed myself. Today I'll let you brothers have a good eye-opener. While speaking, Zhang Feng smiled mysteriously and quickly closed the door. Then he ran to his bedroom. The 5 people's eyes lit up when they heard this. They hurriedly stared at Zhang Feng. After a while, Zhang Feng looked very distressed as he took out a jar of wine covered with dust. The wine jar was not big. It seemed to be able to hold 2 caddies of wine. They looked at each other, not knowing what Zhang Feng was up to. Zhang Feng took out a few exquisite glass cups from the drawer. The cups were not big, only the size of a walnut. Then he carefully opened the mud seal on the wine jar. In an instant, the strong smell of wine made the 5 people's nostrils twitch uncontrollably. He Zhongjing asked in surprise, "Brother Zhang Feng, what kind of good wine is this? Why haven't we drunk it before?" Zhang Feng smiled as he poured the wine. "This is not something good. This is the white wine I brewed at home when I had nothing to do. I hope the 5 brothers can taste it. I wanted to give some to you brothers, but time is tight and I don't have time to brew it. There is only 1 jar left from the previous stock. When I brew it in the future, I will personally give some to you brothers. Let's not talk about this anymore. Let's have a drink first. I can guarantee that you won't be able to drink it anywhere else in the world except here. As long as you can drink it, it must have come from me, Zhang Feng. There's no doubt about it." Chapter 11:19. Seeing how amazing Zhang Feng's description was, they were also interested. Although they were criticizing Zhang Feng for being so stingy in their hearts, they still held the wine cup in their hands as if it was a treasure and tasted it. However, the moment they tasted it, they felt as if there was a flaming knife in their throats, going straight into their stomachs along with their intestines. However, after this spicy feeling, they felt extremely comfortable. Their eyes couldn't help but light up. They didn't care about Zhang Feng anymore and began to drink by themselves. At this time, the Tang's alcohol tolerance was amazing. Everyone was addicted to alcohol, mainly because the alcohol in this era was basically fruit wine or grape wine from the western regions. The alcohol content of the wine was almost negligible, and it was almost the same as fermented glutinous rice. However, when they accidentally drank such spicy white wine, although their faces and ears were red from singing, the 5 of them stared at the small jar of wine on the table with burning eyes after thinking about it. Seeing this, Zhang Feng asked, "How is this wine? Brothers, I didn't say anything wrong, right? Is this good wine?" "Good wine, it's really good wine. It's a rare good wine in the world. Brother Zhang Feng, did you really brew this wine?" When Zhang Feng heard Chen's words, he realized that these people were finally on the right track. He nodded and said, "Yes." However, Zhang Feng immediately asked, "From what you mean, are you suspecting that there's something wrong with this wine? Or rather, where have you drunk this wine before? If that's the case, I'll have to trouble you to tell me. If there is, I, Zhang Feng, am willing to give all my skills to you for free. Then I'll live in seclusion in the mountains and never come out. How about it?" The few of them didn't know that Zhang Feng would be so easily offended. They could only see Zhang Feng's angry expression at this time, and couldn't help but believe it a little more. They repeatedly apologized. Seeing this, Zhang Feng gestured for everyone to continue drinking and ignore him. Then, he inadvertently opened the drawer as if he was looking for something. At this moment, a pair of sunglasses fell to the ground. Zhang Feng saw this and his face changed. He hurriedly sighed and said, "Oh my God." He hurriedly picked it up and looked at it carefully. Then he patted his chest and said, "Fortunately, it didn't break." Zhang Feng looked at them from the corner of his eyes. Then he blew a breath on his sunglasses, wiped it with his sleeve and put it into his pocket. He pretended to be nonchalant and said, "Where is the formula of the bone-strengthening powder that we talked about? I remember that I put it in this drawer." "What? Can't you find it all of a sudden?" How could they still be thinking about the bone-strengthening powder at this time? He Zhongjing held a wine glass and came to Zhang Feng's side with a smile. He touched Zhang Feng's arm and asked in a low voice, "Brother, just now the thing on the ground was..." Zhang Feng was not that kind of money grubber. He didn't even look at the boxes outside, but for this thing his face changed greatly when it fell to the ground. This was obviously an incredible treasure. Before He Zhongjing finished speaking, Zhang Feng's face suddenly changed. Nothing. It's really nothing. This is just a small thing. When He Zhongjing and the others saw this, they all rolled their eyes in disdain. If everyone still felt that this was nothing at this time, then weren't they no different from that idiot? He Zhongjing laughed dryly, then sighed and said, I even thought that Brother Zhang Feng really regarded us as brothers, but now it seems that we don't have the qualifications to enter Dean Zhang Feng's discerning eyes. If that's the case, then we will leave. See you another day. As he spoke, He Zhongjing and the others looked unhappy and were about to leave. Zhang Feng was anxious when he saw this. He pulled him and hurriedly explained, Ayaya, old brother, why are you like this? Okay. If that's the case, then I will let you see it. Zhang Feng took out the sunglasses from his arms and carefully put it on He Zhongjing's eyes. Then he asked, Brother He, what do you think? At this time, Qian, Ouyang Kai, Lu Hongwen, and the others looked at He Zhongjing eagerly. They almost wanted to snatch it from him. He Zhongjing had never seen this kind of thing. He subconsciously closed his eyes, but after waiting for a moment, he felt that it was nothing and opened his eyes. But when he opened his eyes, he couldn't help but be startled. His surroundings instantly darkened. But when he looked at the door, he found that the color of the scenery outside the door had become softer. It was that kind of dazzling feeling, but that feeling was very comfortable. He Zhongjing said in surprise, Brother Zhang Feng, what is this thing of yours? Why is it so magical? As He Zhongjing spoke, he took off the sunglasses from his eyes. In the Nashi area, he repeatedly experimented with it several times. He couldn't help but have fun. Ouyang Kai and the others gritted their teeth, but they couldn't do anything. When Zhang Feng saw this, he gritted his teeth and sighed. Well, since we are all brothers, I happen to have a few pairs here. I originally planned to give them to the best students in the academy this time. Chapter 11:20. When they heard this, their faces changed. Ouyang Kai held the box of sunglasses sadly and said, How could you give such a good thing to those people? How would they know the value of this thing? How would they know how to cherish it? Zhang Feng laughed and said, Didn't I meet you today? While speaking, Zhang Feng handed an exquisite wooden box to Ouyang Kai. Ouyang Kai wiped his hands on the clothes under his armpits as if he had received a treasure. Then he carefully took the box. Inside the box was a pair of sunglasses that were exactly the same as the one in He Zhongjing's hand. There were 2 black glass pieces in the frame. They looked a little strange, but when He Zhongjing and Lord He put them on just now, everyone felt that it was so magical. Most importantly, it was very beautiful. Ouyang Kai couldn't wait to put on the sunglasses. In an instant there was a burst of exclamations. After they played for a while, Zhang Feng saw that it was almost time. He waved his hand and said, Brothers, now that I am on the mountain, I can only give you these things. When I am free I will give you more. How about it? While speaking, Zhang Feng changed the topic and said, I thought about what we discussed yesterday. As I saw a sentence in the unofficial history before, it is better to be alone than to be together. What old Shin said yesterday also benefited me a lot. They asked suspiciously, What sentence? It is that sentence, there are no eternal enemies, only eternal interests. Zhang Feng sighed and said, I was a little narrow-minded before. In fact, in terms of age and aptitude, I should respectfully call you elders. Logically speaking, I should have visited you as soon as I opened an academy in Chang'an City. However, I neglected this matter and was impolite. This is a small matter, but I am wrong. I apologize to you here. While speaking, Zhang Feng bowed respectfully to them. They looked at each other and let go of the last bit of grudge in their hearts. Like true brothers, they stepped forward and held Zhang Feng's hand. We're all brothers, why do you have to be like this? Why do you have to do this? Don't say such things that spoil the mood. If you continue, then you're not treating us as real brothers. Zhang Feng could only lower his head and nod desperately. If he continued to listen and make up stories, Zhang Feng was afraid that he would throw up his dinner from last night. However, for the sake of the plan, Zhang Feng suppressed his disgust and pulled Ouyang Kai with one hand and He Zhongjing with the other to sit down. The few of them were already well aware of Zhang Feng's situation. In Chang, and apart from the Ao Lai Tavern, there was only one other tavern. They didn't know why Li Shimin would secretly come to Zhang Feng every few days. At this time, when they saw that Zhang Feng was so forthright, it was no different from the information they had gathered before. Moreover, this person was not scheming and had many treasures. Not to mention Li Shimin, even they wanted to treasure Zhang Feng. At this time, Zhang Feng pulled on their hands and said, You should all know what happened to me in Chang'an before. Look at my academy. There are so many people supporting it. Although I have made some things, it's hard to support it alone. Although Lao Li and the others are helping, the progress is too slow. For example, the basketball now and the football and so on. If all of them were to be promoted, oh yes, and the bone strengthening powder, you should know about it, right? But look at what the bone strengthening powder looks like in the end. In the end, besides going into the pockets of the residents, what benefits did the people get? They got nothing. Zhang Feng said with righteous indignation, and the others listened and nodded. At this time, Zhang Feng continued, so I have been thinking about how to promote basketball during this time. This is a good thing for the country and the people. These 2 days I met several brothers at the mid-autumn hunt, and this idea came to me. Where can this thing spread the fastest? The academy. In addition, the Ministry of Works, the Ministry of Officials, and the Ministry of Rights, 3 top departments of the Tang Dynasty. If they can help, think about it, this is a rare opportunity to improve your reputation. If you help, I can guarantee that within a year your official ranks will be promoted, and you will be the real ones. Hearing this, the eyes of the several people instantly turned red. In the current imperial court, it was harder than ascending to the sky to be promoted, and it was a big grade. It was simply a fool's dream. In addition, the emperor was deliberately targeting them at this time. At this time they were simply unable to move an inch. In addition, each grade of official was divided into upper and lower grades. That was the difference between the 3 grades. Although it was only a difference of 1 word, the difference was huge that night. Only the higher one climbed, the greater the influence in the family, and the more benefits he could get. This was the cruelty of being a big family. They always only valued the family's interests and the contributions you could make to the family. They never cared about who you were. Chapter 11:21. Zhang Feng's words ignited a flame in everyone's hearts. Zhang Feng ignited the flame in everyone's hearts. It was the flame that could start a prairie fire. Zhang Feng saw that the matter was almost settled, so he talked about the basketball. As for the basketball, I won't charge any of you. Just treat it as a free gift. How about we treat it as our gratitude for recognizing our worth? The basketball training method wasn't a secret in the first place. The best way to increase the reputation of White Deer Academy was to promote this method, and these fellows were the best boosters. In addition, each basketball was sold for 100 copper coins. What was this? This was where the profits were. The few of them said that they couldn't accept it. However, no one said a word about whether they would pay or how much they would pay. This was within Zhang Feng's expectations. He didn't say anything and rummaged through the drawer for a while before taking out a small booklet. The booklet was made of white paper and was about the size of a book. When he took out the booklet, the 5 of them couldn't help but twitch their eyelids. Everyone knew the price of white paper. It was 700 copper coins per caddy. This booklet looked like it was about 3 taels. How much was it? This didn't include the things recorded in the middle. Zhang Feng placed the booklet on the table and said, "This is about how to use the basketball and the rules. I've recorded it in detail. Later on you brothers will have to work hard and make 4 copies. How about that?" The few of them were overjoyed and promised repeatedly. Only then did He Zhongjing from the Ministry of Works happily take the booklet. He held it tightly with both hands in front of his chest. Only then did he stop. Then, everyone knew that the matter had reached the most critical moment. Zhang Feng took out 4 more booklets from the drawer. Now that we've settled the basketball issue, let's treat this radio gymnastics program as a meeting gift for my brothers. After all, my brothers will have a lot of influence after being promoted, and it will be more helpful to us in our future business chain. Chain? No one was surprised as they asked in return. Zhang Feng nodded and said, "That's right. It's a chain store. I'm sure you brothers have visited Chang and restaurant before. Have you seen the small words below the signboard of Chang and restaurant? White Deer College's first branch or something like that?" The few of them nodded. Zhang Feng then said, "That's what a chain store means. You brothers can arrange for your own stores. You can open them wherever you want. I won't charge you a single copper coin. You can treat it as a free gift. But there's one thing. This brazing material and this recipe have been passed down in my family for hundreds of years. It's a secret recipe. Yesterday it was because of this that I didn't promise you in time. I hope you don't mind. Since this thing has been passed down for hundreds of years and hasn't been passed down, it must be an extremely precious heirloom. Today Brother Zhang Feng is so generous to pass it down, it must have suffered a great psychological burden. Let's not talk about it anymore. We brothers have already done you 2 favors. You don't need to talk about the braised meat anymore. We all know how much the braised meat is worth. So we will give you 1,000 gold taels as a joining fee for every restaurant. What do you think? 11,000 gold taels? Oh my god. Lao Tzu originally thought that a few thousand strings of coins or a few hundred taels of silver would be enough. He was worried that they would just leave. His brain wasn't sharp enough. How did his vision become so low? Zhang Feng had the urge to slap himself. When they saw this, they couldn't help but look at each other. They didn't know why Zhang Feng had such a pained expression on his face at this moment. They thought that he felt that the money was too little. The few of them looked at each other, and finally He Zhongjing gritted his teeth and said, "I'll make the decision. We'll give you 1,500 taels of silver per restaurant. This is our limit. But don't worry, as long as we can earn money or get the approval of our families, this can only be considered as a deposit. When the time comes, we'll give you extra support. Brother, we'll give you more than this. What do you think?" When Zhang Feng heard this, he finally felt relieved. At the same time, he silently calculated. How much did they earn in this short period of time? How much wealth did these aristocratic families hoard? From the historical records, Li Shimin had to live frugally or cry about being poor everywhere in order to raise money for the military or when there was a disaster. Only then would he be able to raise some money. However, now that he had transmigrated, he truly realized that what Bulsh *T Dubai's nouveau riche was a real nouveau riche. Zhang Feng excitedly held Ouyang Kai and Lu Hongwen's hands. He stuttered for a long time but couldn't say a complete sentence. In the end, he forced out two words. "Righteous."